CD 4.
Lizzie. But why can't I go? Because you're 11, not 17. Well, what if Amy's mum goes with us? Is she? Oh, I think. Yeah, she is. Okay. I'll call and ask her today. Don't call her. Why can't you just trust me? Zara stomped out of the kitchen and slammed the bathroom door. What had started as a rational discussion over breakfast had rapidly descended into a full-blown mother-daughter battle. Zara calmly informed me that she'd be attending an outdoor music festival with her friend Amy in a couple of weeks, which is when I calmly informed her that no such thing would be happening. Cue descent into shouting, stomping and slamming. I was assembling the third lunchbox sandwich when Zara swept back in. "Oh, look out, she's back," I said. "What have I done?" Zara demanded, arms folded and a face like thunder. "Well, hopefully you've brushed your teeth and put your shoes on." I looked down. "Nope, still barefoot." "You know what I mean," she snapped. "Why are you so angry with me all the time?" "I have no idea what you're talking about." I snapped Max's lunchbox lid shut. "Now, can you please go and you won't let me have a phone?" "Because you don't need one," I said for the 3,000th time that week. "Not until you start high school and get the bus." "And I bet that even when I do get a phone," Zara continued as if I hadn't spoken, "you won't let me get Instagram." "Correct," I said, smothering Stella's sandwich in tomato sauce as per her specific instructions. 11-year-old girls pulling duck-face selfies are a symbol of a crumbling society. Future historians will project holograms of today's social media teens into their lecture halls and everyone will laugh and marvel at just how unbelievably narcissistic a race we were. They'll look at it like sexism or smoking in public, something completely ridiculous and wrong that is impossible to imagine being real or acceptable. Zara stared, briefly shocked into silence, then threw her hands in the air. "You've practiced that," she shouted. "You are so old and you have no idea how the world works." She visibly shrank as I slammed the knife down on the bench top, knowing she'd gone too far. "You do not speak to me like that," I growled. "You, my young friend, just lost your allowance for a week. Now go outside and bring in that washing like I asked you half an hour ago." I shouldn't have to do chores if I'm not getting an allowance. You had to admire her bravery, determined to get the last word in, even if it meant certain death. As Dad would say, "Anderballengebier." She's got big balls. "This is a family," I said in a tone I usually saved for fathers who asked if they could just slip out to make a work call while their wife was in the final stages of labour. "We all help out, regardless of whether we are paid to do so. Now go outside and bring in that washing, or it will be 2 weeks. "Fine, but you have been really grumpy lately." She made a dash for the laundry before I could respond or throw the knife. Max bounded in, kicking his soccer ball. "Out," I ordered. "No balls inside." "Did you think about it?" he asked, picking up his beloved inanimate bouncing pet. "Think about what?" I sighed, knowing full well what was coming. "Soccer!" Max held the ball above his head as if about to break into the circle of life. "Can I play next season?" "I told you we can't afford it, Max. Now please, please, Mum." "Max Barrett," I shouted, "do not start with me this morning. I've had enough from your sister. Now go tell Stella and Archie we're leaving in 10 minutes. But go." "You're cranky." He dropped the ball and turned to kick it towards Stella's room. "You've been cranky all week." I sagged. 2 out of 4 kids had now inferred that I'd been acting like the bitch mother from hell. They were used to me saying no to things that their friends' parents always say yes to, but I wasn't usually so cranky and shouty. It had been over a week since I'd first spotted Rick, and it was clearly taking a toll. As Zara would say, I needed closure. I absolutely had to finish that letter and give it to Greg, regardless of the consequences. Time for that pesky sword of Damocles to fuck right off. A small, excited crowd was gathered around our bench when I arrived at school. The mini throng was made up of the activewear clique, the Botox brigade, and the let's get wasted on pills and booze every weekend mums. A mixed bunch indeed. But even more astonishing was the sight of Megan sitting right at the centre of all the hullabaloo. What's that about? Sam was behind me, looking just as confused. No idea. One of the mums from the activewear clique sat down and clasped Megan's hands between her own. Christ, Megsy's gone all Mother Teresa. I nudged Sam. Go see what's happening. You go, Sam said. I'm not walking into that pack of wolves. Oh, look, she's doing the I've got to make a call bit, I said, watching Megan gesturing to her phone and shaking her head apologetically. Come on. The crowd around Megan dispersed as Sam and I headed for the bench. If you want to order 5,000 of those hoodies, it's going to cost you... Stop the fake conversation bullshit and tell us what that was about, I demanded as Sam and I sat on either side of her. Did you win the lottery? Sam asked. Cure cancer? Hit 1 million followers? It's nothing. Megan rolled her eyes. I may or may not have had a few too many wines last night, and I may or may not have written a post about Henry and our community, which everyone is losing their collective shit over. Show me. This was one of the few downsides of not being on social media. Every now and then I missed out on something like this. Maybe Zara was right. Megan tapped, swiped, tapped again, then handed me her phone. Sam leant over and we read together. Dear Cody, we are a grieving community and you are calling us disgraceful based on an unfounded accusation. For the record, Henry would often not be at the crossing for a day or two. He has family and personal commitments like anyone else. We missed him every time he wasn't there because he was as much a part of Bay Tree Primary as the students or the teachers or the families or the classrooms. But this time, he will not be coming back, and all of us are dealing with that as best we can. Parents are explaining what's happened to their kids, who are upset and confused. The Bay Tree teaching staff are offering all the support they can. The kids are laying flowers at the crossing. We will never be ashamed of our community, Cody, because we know what it's made of. Next time you decide to drag someone across the coals for clickbait, maybe talk to them first. You're welcome to visit us at Bay Tree. There's good coffee nearby, and we love a chat. Wow, I said. That's beautiful, Megs. Most of it is completely untrue, but still beautiful. Thanks. Fake news, Sam said, but awesome sentiment. I was drunk and feeling sentimental. Jesus, that's got to be a first for you, I said. The sentimentality part, I mean. Look, even Guthrie's coming over to join the all-praise Megan Wiley celebrations. Wouldn't have picked Guthrie for a social media type, Sam said. What does she post pictures of? Her latest polo neck skivvy? Shh, I hissed as the principal approached. Good morning. With her dark hair loose around her shoulders and a smile that actually reached her eyes, Penny looked less severe than usual. I just wanted to say how impressed I was with your post, Megan. It's exactly the kind of publicity we need at the moment. Thanks. Megan looked equal parts chuffed and dazed. I felt a bit jealous. Megan had never shown an ounce of interest in the school, and here she was receiving praise for her community spirit, which was actually all thanks to me dobbing her in, plus a few too many wines on a school night. It's given me an idea. Penny sat down beside Sam and he froze, clearly uncomfortable being in such close proximity to our principal. What if we dedicate the end-of-year concert to Henry? It seems fitting, especially in light of your post. That's a great idea, Penny, Sam said. I narrowed my eyes at him. Suck up. Thanks, Sam, Penny said, her eyes still on Megan. What do you think, Megan? Well, yeah, that would be lovely. A show that reflects Henry's community spirit, Penny continued. You can probably find something like that online, or you could write something. Me? Megan looked horrified. I'm not a writer. Well, you obviously have a talent with words, Penny said. I'm sure whatever you come up with will be great. You only need to think about the script component of the junior school concert. The teachers will be organising the songs. Generous of them, I thought, since that's their job and all. Anyway, I have a school tour in a few minutes, so best I get back to it. Penny stood, then turned back to Megan to deliver one final bombshell. It would be wonderful if you could represent the school at Henry's funeral tomorrow to lay the wreath I've ordered. I've emailed you the details. I'd go myself, but I have a PD course all day. Bye now. Megan looked as though her phone had fallen in a toilet as she watched Penny stride away. You okay? I asked Megan. No, she snapped. Not only do I have to work on this stupid fucking school concert, but apparently I have to come up with the concept for it and write it? What? Suddenly I'm Bay Tree Primary Special Envoy to the fucking UN? And I have to go to the funeral of a man I didn't even really know. I hate funerals. I mean, I've never been to one, but I'm pretty sure I hate them. You'll be fine, I said, trying to sound convincing. Just pop your head in, lay the wreath, and get out. Can you come with me, please? I'm working. Sam? Can't. Why not? Sam squirmed on the bench. Just can't. Assholes, Megan muttered. The least you can do is help me with the show. Oh, no way. The idea of it was laughable. I don't have time for that. Neither do I, Megan shrieked. But you dumped me in this shit, so now you can help me shovel it. A familiar shape appeared in my peripheral vision, and I just knew, it was Rick. Lizzie. I'd let my guard down, and now he was standing less than 6 feet away from me. I felt sick. Everything felt as if it were moving in slow motion as I turned my head to look at him. He'd barely changed. Still thin but fit, with tight muscles that showed through his dark blue jumper, a full head of that familiar strawberry blonde mop, although greys were vying for top spot, and a few more lines etched into the corners of his Jersey cow eyes, now framed behind black-rimmed glasses. Still handsome, too. The shine and glow of his youth hadn't been dulled. He was staring at me expectantly, as were Megan and Sam, who had instantly forgotten our argument and were far more intrigued by the appearance of this stranger who knew my name. I had to say something. Just act normal. Rick! My voice sounded high and squeaky. Oh my God! I stood up on jelly legs and leant in for an awkward hug. His arms tightened around my back for a second before releasing me. How are you? I asked a bit too loudly, nervously waving my hands around like a backstreet boy. Great, he said, grinning. How are you? I'm Megan. Fed up with waiting for an introduction, Megan was on her feet with her hand out. Rick smiled and shook it, but didn't seem as discombobulated as most men when first meeting Megan. Sam. Rick reached down to shake Sam's outstretched hand. G'day. So, how do you know Lizzie? Megan asked. Played soccer at the same club as kids, Rick said cheerily. Even went on a couple of dates when we were teenagers. Seems like 1,000 years ago. Dates? He made it sound as though we split a thick shake. I was momentarily thrown, but quickly decided if that was the story he was telling, I'd happily go along with it, at least in front of these guys. If the man whose heart I'd stomped on wanted to protect me from the truth of my terrible behaviour in front of my friends, then who was I to stop him? "Who have you got here?" he asked me. "Any in grades 5 or 6? "Zara and Archie Barrett." "I'm talking to Rick Cook." "Zara's in my class," Rick said, nodding. "Seems like a good kid." "I've also got Stella in grade 3 and Max in grade 1. "Wow," Rick laughed, shaking his head. "You've been busy." "How about you?" I said, desperate to steer the conversation away from the mental image of me getting busy. "Kids?" "2. He opened his wallet to reveal a photo of 2 gorgeous dark-haired girls, Christy and Layla. "Oh, they're beautiful," Megan gushed. "Have you ever thought about getting them into modelling? I run a children's online fashion business and we're always looking for fresh kids." "Unbelievable," Sam muttered. "Thanks, but I think we'll pass," Rick smiled, shoving the wallet back in his pocket. "I should get back to class. Lovely to meet you, Megan and Sam, and great to see you, Lizzie." Yeah, you too." I watched him walk away and felt as though I was no longer made of anything solid. "Ex-boyfriend, huh?" Megan elbowed me. "At Baytree. What are the odds?" She had no idea. Late that night, when the kids were all asleep and Greg was in bed, flat on his back and snoring like a freight train, I crept into the office. The swivel chair creaked as I sat down and I winced, terrified that the slightest noise would wake my husband, when in actual fact a brass band could parade through our room most nights and he wouldn't stir. I pushed my shoulders back, took a labour-worthy breath, and opened the Lizzie's Christmas presents document. But I still didn't know what to write. How could I tell Greg about everything Rick and I had been through? The love I'd felt for him never quite grew into the "I'd die for you" kind of love, but I'd had a lot of the perfect teen life boxes ticked. Handsome, loving boyfriend, great mates, good family life, local soccer star status. But at 17, I was nurturing a restlessness that was blossoming into something that felt dangerous. Every now and then, as we all lay around Lockie's lounge room watching Ace Ventura: Pet Detective for the umpteenth time, or drinking scotch and cokes at the club on a Saturday night, I'd have the weird sensation that I was suffocating. I'd suddenly run to the bathroom and splash cold water on my face, forcing deep breaths into my tight lungs and exhaling through pursed dry lips, as if trying to blow out a stubborn candle. By the time I finished school, it seemed that the course my life would take had been planned and set in stone by everyone but me. 1. Work full-time in the restaurant and save for deposit on house. 2. Get married. 3. Buy house in western suburbs. Items 2 and 3 are interchangeable. 4. Pay off mortgage slowly but consistently. 5. Continue playing soccer socially until pregnant. 6. Produce between 2 and 5 children. 7. Allow room in budget for 1 holiday a year because it's nice to do something spontaneous. Rick began working in the mailroom at the local Toyota plant the day after his final exam and transformed into an adult overnight. I flicked the switch to autopilot for those first few years after finishing school. I still lived at home, worked full-time at the restaurant, played soccer on weekends and ate at Taco Bell's with our gang every Sunday night. I wasn't exactly filled with joie de vivre, but I'd accepted that this was my life. Rick proposed on the night of my 21st. A bunch of us spent the day decorating the clubhouse with purple and white helium balloons, a big silver banner that read Happy 21st Birthday, and purple crepe paper. Auntie Carmen and a few other soccer mums cooked up a finger food feast. There was a full bar, thanks Dad, and we'd hired a local DJ who we soon discovered had a questionable passion for Hootie and the Blowfish. I had fun that night. There was the requisite amount of daggy dancing to Barbie Girl and tub thumping, as well as a boozy sing-along to Hootie's Let Her Cry later in the night. My mates working the bar got me pissed by making my Scotch and Cokes at a ratio of 80% Scotch, 20% Coke. All in all, it was a standard Saturday night, except that I was an adult, and by the end of the night, a fiancé. Dad made a beautiful speech that made everyone cry, including him, and Melissa spoke about my humiliating teen years, including the bush rape girl story, which dried Dad's tears up quick smart. Just when I was preparing to jump back on the parquet dance floor, Rick took the gold bedazzled microphone from the DJ, got down on one knee in front of the 100 or so people jammed into the room, and gazed up at me. "Lizzie Abella," he said, "will you marry me?" Cheers, whistles and catcalls swarmed around the room as I stared down at him, drunk and speechless. The word "no" roared through my brain right as I heard myself say yes. And then Rick was lifting me off the ground and whirling me around, which was not a great idea considering my inebriated state. I raced to the bathroom and vomited straight into the toilet while Melissa held my hair back with well-practiced care. I'm still not sure if it was a reaction to the alcohol and the subsequent spinning, or because I'd just agreed to marry a man I loved but wasn't in love with. Even at 21, I knew the difference. The next year was a flurry of pre-wedding activity. Auntie Carmen was beyond thrilled to be organising a wedding for her little cat, and I proceeded to spend the next year distracting myself with Dean Koontz novels, long hours working at the restaurant, and scotch. Lots of scotch. Dad insisted on paying for the whole wedding, although he didn't have much choice since Rick's dad didn't have 2 cents to rub together, and I begged him not to go overboard. "My only daughter is getting married," Dad shouted to the full restaurant when I told him that the horse-drawn carriage was probably a bridge too far. "You only marry once in this life and you should do it properly, like the royals." Finally, the church, local function centre and priest were booked. The dress was bought and paid for, and all 200 people had ticked the "Yes, I will be attending" box on the garish embossed RSVP cards. Auntie Carmen loved opening them and announcing the confirmed attendees with wonderfully exaggerated grandeur. "His Lordship and Lady Gianchino are thrilled to be attending the wedding of Princess Elizabeth and Prince Richard." The first time Auntie Carmen saw me in the enormous white meringue dress she'd picked out, she wept and told me how proud my mother would be. Rick and my brothers had rented their monkey suits. Melissa and 3 other friends from our gang had their lilac taffeta dresses ready to go, and the priest was locked in. Every single item on the to-do list had been crossed off, except the one in my head that read, "Lizzie is thrilled to be attending the wedding of Princess Elizabeth and Prince Richard." "You are going to be the spunkiest bride Williamstown has ever seen," Melissa squealed the day before the wedding. She'd come to meet me on my lunch break at the restaurant to go over some last-minute bridesmaids business. "Nervous?" "I really am." I silently pleaded with her to understand what I was telling her. "I don't want to do this. Please help me." "Totally normal," Melissa said, waving her hand at me. "Once you see him standing in front of that altar, you'll be fine." But I couldn't picture Rick standing on that altar. Worse than that, I couldn't picture myself walking up the aisle in that ridiculous dress. Nothing about any of it felt right. "I love you so much," Rick said to me on the phone that night. We'd agreed not to see each other the day before the wedding. I can't wait to spend the rest of my life with you, Lizzie Abella. Soon to be Lizzie Cook. The moment I heard my new name, Lizzie Cook, it was like waking up. I began to hatch my escape plan as soon as I got off the phone. I knew it would hurt my family and friends in a way they'd never forget or possibly forgive, and that it would break Rick's heart. But I couldn't marry him. I was too much of a chicken shit to go straight to his house and tell him that I'd changed my mind. So late that night, I packed a bag and my passport and left a note on my bed that read, "Dear Dad and Auntie Carmen, I'm so very sorry, but I can't go through with it. Please tell Rick how very, very sorry I am. I'm going away for a while, but I'll be in touch and pay back every cent you've spent on the wedding. I promise. I love you both. L. Kiss." Then I walked to the depot, got a late bus to the airport, and caught the first flight to Sydney. I felt ashamed and selfish. On the plane, I slowly absorbed the enormity of what I'd just done, and it hit me like a ton of bricks. I actually jerked my head back in my seat, scaring the man next to me, while my ex-fiancé slept at home in his bed, most likely dreaming about our magical day. I was a selfish coward. But on that night, in that moment, my only thoughts were of escape. Running from the life I'd allowed to happen and everything in it. I wanted to start again, so I did. Megan. Megan couldn't help but imagine a ghostly Henry floating around the huge bluestone church, surveying the turnout with great satisfaction. It was packed. Who knew the sweet old lollipop man could pull such a huge crowd? As she slid into a half-empty pew at the back, it occurred to her that she'd never draw a crowd like this to her own funeral. She instinctively went to pull out her phone, then stopped. Scrolling through photos of healthy living humans while Henry's dead body lay encased in wood less than 30 metres away probably wasn't appropriate. She glanced at the polished timber coffin in front of the altar, then looked away. She wasn't all that comfortable with death staring her in the face like that, although she couldn't help wondering what Henry was wearing. A suit? Or the grey woolly jumper, khaki pants and high-vis vest he was wearing when Megan last saw him? If she did find herself floating around at her own funeral, she was sure she'd hate whatever best and less or Target outfit Ellie chose. She made a mental note to provide her mum with explicit instructions on her funeral attire. She assumed Ellie would hold her daughter's funeral in a church, despite Megan's atheism. It would be a small affair. Ellie, Matt, Oscar, Lizzie and Sam would be there, and a few Applewood residents who would show up to support their heartbroken friend. "Such a shame," the old ladies would say. "So young." "Such a shame," the old men would say. "So pretty." The bitchiest girls from school, Janice Waters and Natalie Brady, might make an appearance, just so they could pretend they were besties with the girl from the sleek briefs ad. Megan could see them updating their statuses with posts like, "Just makes me realise how fragile life is and how precious every moment really is. Feeling very lucky today, RIP beautiful lady." An old man with a hearing aid gestured for Megan to move down the pew. She shuffled along, wondering why a guy who was so deaf would sit so far back. Surely an octogenarian like him got the VIP treatment at funerals. Megan glanced to her left, reviewing her escape route out of the church. She'd give this funeral 10 minutes, tops. She'd kept her promise by showing up and laying a wreath with a card that read, "We will all miss you, Henry. Thank you for everything you've done for us and our school. Love from the kids, teachers and parents of Baytree Primary School." No one would know if she didn't stay for the whole service. Megan looked at the time on her phone and sighed, drawing a dirty look from the hearing aid dude beside her. Not so deaf after all, are you? Megan thought. She scrolled through her mental to-do list, visit mum, schedule the week's social posts, update website with new stock and accompanying images, school pickup. Megan's fingers, unaccustomed to being device-free, twitched in her lap, so she distracted herself with some good old-fashioned people watching. She assumed the people comforting one another in the front row must be Henry's immediate family. Where were you? Megan thought sharply, watching a middle-aged woman dab at her eyes with a tissue. If you were his daughter, why weren't you checking on him? She suddenly hated the eye-dabbing lady, despite the fact that she knew nothing about the circumstances of Henry's death and shouldn't be such a judgy cow, as Lizzie would say. Just when it seemed as if the church would need a quick renovation to fit in all the mourners, the priest took his place at the pulpit. Welcome, everyone, to this very special celebration of Henry Northcote's life, he said, a huge smile on his face. Please stand for the first hymn. The organ started and the entire congregation stood and lifted their voices. It sounded amazing. Is this what happens at funerals? Megan wondered. Do priests smile? She'd assumed it would be all tears and misery. She certainly hadn't expected a smiling priest and a congregation singing Morning Has Broken with the gusto of a gospel choir. At the end of the hymn, the priest invited the eye-dabbing woman to speak about her father. Ha, Megan thought. I was right. The black-clad woman walked up to the lectern, laid out some notes, and began to speak in a shaky voice. For those of you who don't know me, she began, I'm Henry's daughter, Margaret. In one way, none of us are surprised that Dad left us while his entire family were on the other side of the world for his grandson's wedding. Megan shrank in the pew. I'm a bad person. Dad hated making a fuss and never wanted to spend his last days in a hospital bed. Margaret continued, Stubborn old goat. The entire congregation chuckled, and Megan suddenly felt like a callous intruder. Dad refused to come on the family trip, Margaret continued. We pleaded with him, but he insisted he didn't want to be a burden. That was Dad to a T. Thoughtful, considerate, and so kind. Margaret broke down, leaning on the lectern for support. A tall man with shaggy brown hair and a kind face immediately jumped up from his spot in the front pew and went to her. He put his arm around the woman and whispered in her ear, and Margaret nodded, gave him the paper, and lay her head on his shoulder. Megan suddenly felt her eyes fill with tears. I'm Eddie, Henry's grandson, he said in a clear, confident voice. This is obviously very difficult for Mum, so I'm going to help her out. He began to read, and Megan listened as the life of Henry Northcote played out in her mind like a movie montage, all narrated in the soothing, deep tones of his handsome grandson. Margaret had written with great affection about the man who had grown up in England, married his teenage sweetheart, and emigrated to Australia in the 60s. Henry had worked as a handyman, a tram driver, a metal worker, a builder, had maintained the church gardens and the adjoining community centre, and founded the local DIY kids club. He and his beloved wife Lucille had 3 children, and when Lucille died a few years ago, the community had rallied around Henry. He was a much-loved and respected figure in the community, volunteering for everything from fostering dogs to lollipop man duty and chipping in at various community working bees, always turning up with a car full of ancient tools that he used expertly and with unwavering vigour. Henry's 3 children and 8 grandchildren were all overseas when he died. It gives us small comfort to know that he and Grandma are together again, Eddie concluded. He missed her so much, but is now able to spend the rest of eternity with his beloved Lucille, until the rest of us get up there and ruin their peace and quiet. Everyone, including Megan, laughed through their tears. A man from Henry's bowling club got up to speak next. When he didn't show up for bowls on Monday, we thought he'd nick down the coast to stay with Jeff. He turned to Henry's family, tears streaming down his face. He told us he might do that. You know, the old bugger refused to have a mobile phone, so we thought... He trailed off, and Margaret and another woman rushed to hug him, assuring him that it was no one's fault. The service went for almost an hour and a half, and Megan stayed until the end. A stream of people got up to speak about Henry Northcote, including 3 teenagers who Henry had helped reclaim their skate park from aggressive drunks, apparently with the aid of a large wrench and some very colourful language. These kids spoke affectionately about how Henry had given them their park back and the impact he'd had on their lives. There were so many sides to this man that Megan found it hard to keep up. There was a slideshow too, accompanied by Rod Stewart's Forever Young. Grainy black and white shots of a grinning child in rural England, adult Henry on his wedding day, Henry nursing babies, Henry playing with his kids, Henry surrounded by loving family, friends and colleagues. There was even a photo of him smiling proudly in his Lollipop Man uniform. Henry had been doing volunteer work with the Salvation Army since his 20s, dishing out soup to the homeless at a local shelter 2 nights a week. In her 20s, Megan had been living off the royalties from her ad and handouts from her mum and spending most of her time partying and travelling, until she'd ended up in Berlin, where she'd done an anti-Bowie and delved into a lifestyle very much dictated by recreational drugs. What would a slideshow montage of Megan's life look like? What photos would they use? Baby Co catalogues from the toddler years? Target catalogues from the teen years? Her wedding day? Holding Oscar when he was first born? Then what? Megan was overwhelmed by a mixture of emotions as she sat in the back of the church. Shame was definitely in the mix. Shame that she'd been fobbing Henry off day after day, assuming he was just another pervy old bloke who was only friendly because Megan was a bit of a hottie. The old man she'd dismissed as an insignificant senior citizen had lived this life, this enormous life, and was so very loved. There was also deep admiration, as well as a kind of envy, which immediately brought shame back to the forefront. But she couldn't help it. Who would speak about her in this way when she died? Henry was good. He did good things. He was selfless. What had Megan done? As they stood for the final hymn, Megan wondered what constituted a good eulogy. Maybe something along the lines of, "Thank you and welcome to the several thousands of you who have crammed into St. Patrick's Cathedral and to the masses outside watching on the big screen for Megan Wiley's memorial service. Megan travelled the world 6 times during her life, forged a successful career as a foreign correspondent and UN peace ambassador, and made stacks of cash. She had a string of exotic lovers, eventually settling down with acclaimed actor Chris Hemsworth. This amazing, courageous woman with hundreds of friends and truckloads of money definitely did not die a nobody." The reality would be more like, "Welcome to the handful of you who have attended Megan Wiley's funeral today. Megan was born into a semi-dysfunctional family in the southeastern suburbs. She could sing all the words to No Scrubs by the time she was 14, And although she didn't know who the first Prime Minister of Australia was, she did know the names of every member of Destiny's Child. From an early age, Megan was obsessed with clothes. She loved to dance and liked to drink or three from an illegal age. Her body could definitely be described as stereotypically good. Megan had a few unfulfilling relationships, including her marriage to a closeted gay man who waited until they had a young son before deciding to embrace his true self and fuck right off. The priest called on the pallbearers to take their positions around Henry's casket, and Megan suddenly felt breathless. She wouldn't be able to cope with watching Henry's coffin being lifted and carried out by his sons, grandsons, and friends, weeping as they escorted this extraordinary man out. As she fumbled for her bag, choking back sobs, the hearing aid dude gave her a comforting pat on the shoulder. "We'll all miss the old boy," he said, wiping away tears. Megan stumbled out of the pew, almost running for the door, as hundreds of voices began singing "Abide With Me" in perfect unison behind her.
Sam. To Jack was here at hotmail.com from Sam Hatfield Chef at bigpond.com. Subject: The case of Sam's missing balls. Hey dickhead. Just got back from pickup where I had a good chat to Lizzie's hubby, Greg. He seems like a solid bloke, you know. Not a bogan, but a man who is embraced by bogans. I've told you Lizzie's a midwife, yeah? She does insane shifts sometimes, but never says boo. Just does her thing and then tells us awesome stories about bodily fluids and screaming women. You sent me that last email at 2:43 a.m. You on the crank again? I hear what you're saying, but talking to Bridge won't help. The travelling mum situation has gone unaddressed for too long. I've adapted. Bridge goes away, I run a tight ship and there's more laughter in the house. I drink more than I should, watch what I want after the kids go to bed, then drink more, chuckle to myself and fall asleep on the couch. I don't really get hangovers anymore, so the mornings are fine. Then Bridge comes home and brings her stress back with her. Stress like radiant heat. The kids annoy her. They long for her attention because she's their mum and they've missed her. But she's with adults when she's away, so kids, even hers, just give her the shits. They're loud and irrational. I too shit her. It doesn't matter what I've achieved around the house, Bridge has a radar that can seek out whatever hasn't been done. And that's the thing she'll ask about when she gets home at the end of her workday. Did you follow up with the heating people? Nope. Cleaned the house, vacuumed, mopped, did 2 loads of washing, including drying, folding and putting away, did a food shop, prepared 3 nights' worth of meals and sorted out Lola's camp excursion forms, which involved logging into and or creating accounts for no less than 3 different vitally important school apps. It's the modern version of Triplicate, but heaps less effective. I also researched and reconfigured all our Wi-Fi settings to make sure coverage is even around the house. That one wasn't even on my list, but I did it anyway because good Wi-Fi is a source of great tension in the modern Aussie household, and our family's no exception. But no, I didn't follow up with the heating guys. Mainly because we own clothes and live in a house with walls and a roof and an oversupply of doonas, blankets, throw rugs and oversized towels that could probably see us through the next ice age. But I didn't do the thing Bridge wanted me to do, so she does that little exhale through her nose and purses her lips and looks at me with an expression that literally translates to, "What the hell did you do all day?" I digress. If I sat Bridge down and said, "Look, I think we need to talk about the familial upheaval caused by your constant travel," my feeling is that she'd blast a hole in my torso, like what the Predator did to Jesse the Body Ventura. And what you said is right. It's 100% right and rational and wise. But I can't. There was one particular FaceTime while she was away last week when I was thinking about what you said. I was thinking, say it. Say it now. She can't reach through the phone and throttle you. I dropped the kids off and had this really cool chat with Lizzie and Megan about the benefits of owning a really good quality iron, and I'd come home feeling good and happy, so I went straight to the kitchen. I hit the radio and that awesome Staple Singers song starts at the very beginning of the song, as if someone had been waiting to press play for me. I'll Take You There. I love that song. So I'm cooking and dancing and singing, House is clean, shopping done, washing done, kids safely delivered to school. I'm thinking after I cook whatever this masterpiece turns out to be, I might even get the guitar out of the garage. My mobile rings, and I shouldn't have looked. I shouldn't have even had the fucking thing on. The school have the home phone if anything happens. This is what phones do. They yank you out of whatever moment you might be in, or are about to find, or even start to look for, and the phone barks at you, reminding you that your moment isn't important. Your moment doesn't mean shit compared to what the phone has in store. That's where it's all happening, on the phone. I'm projecting onto the phone. Sorry, phone. It wasn't the phone's fault that Bridget Wants to FaceTime popped up on it. She was in Manchester and it was night there, and we'd missed each other at the designated time because Lola forgot she had netball trials this morning. I answer because I'd rather sacrifice my current mood than deal with the repercussions of not answering. So, the staple singers are abruptly faded out, the stove has turned to a low simmer. I was toasting mustard seed and cassia bark. Masterpiece. I take a gallows breath and answer the phone. As I'm answering, I'm thinking there's nothing in the frame that she'll see that she won't like. Washing baskets in the background tip her over the edge. She's a bit pissed. Outside some bar, drinking something that looks fluorescent orange, like it could change her molecular structure. And I remember it's the last day of her conference. It was all about exploring how best to create an atmosphere of initiative-based outcomes and find fresh new meanings for their customer experience. How to effectively jizz in each other's faces. But I learned years ago not to in any way mock the corporate wankery that Bridge has to wade through daily. That wankery pays the bills and keeps me in the life to which I've become accustomed. We used to laugh about it together, but it hasn't amused her for a while. She asked to talk to the kids. I reminded her they were at school. She said, "What?" implying that I deliberately altered global time zones. I asked how the conference finished up. She said it was energising to be surrounded by brilliant people. Then a man called her name, and her voice jumped half an octave when she responded, but I couldn't hear what she said because she lowered the phone or put it against her chest or something. I heard laughing, a man laughing, Bridge laughing. I hadn't heard that laugh for a long time. As her face came back into view, she was finishing a sentence. "No one, I'm coming now, I'm coming." She looked back at the phone and said she had to go, because these were the nights when the real business happened. I said it'd probably be easier just to wait until she's home to see the kids. She agreed and said she'd better go, again. Then, due to the joys of latency, I said, "Love you," at the same time that she said, "Bye," and hung up. But I heard one more little burst of laughter before she hit the red button. Sending you love, double-dipped in sadness, as always. S. X.
Lizzie. What the hell is going on in here? It looked as if Stella, Miyabi and Sky had set small explosive devices in all my dry baking ingredients, ducked behind the kitchen bench to avoid the blast zone and pushed the detonator. Brown powder and white gooey splodges covered every square inch of the kitchen bench top and floor. Dirty mixing bowls, wooden spoons and plates spilled out of the sink. Bailey was up on his hind legs, licking icing sugar out of a bowl on the counter, and the moment he heard my voice, he jumped down, bringing the bowl with him, which smashed into pieces. 3 8-year-old chocolate-covered faces looked up at me with fear in their eyes. "We're making fudge," Stella squeaked. "We're going to clean up and—" "I can see that." I squatted down to pick up broken pieces of crockery. "This kitchen looks like a bloody war zone. Who said you could make fudge?" "Actually, we asked." Something in my brain snapped. Jesus Christ! I threw the broken pieces into the bin. I finally get time to clean the house this morning, and then I have to come home from work to this. I said you could have friends over after school, Stella, not destroy the house. "All right, that's enough. Come on now," a voice at the back of my brain was saying. "Calm down. You're scaring the shit out of them." But I couldn't stop. Nobody in this house has any appreciation for what I do. I was ranting and raving and stomping around the girls who seemed to have frozen on the spot, picking up dirty bowls and flinging them into the sink one after another. I am sick of cleaning up everyone's shit. Stella burst into tears and ran out. Miyabi and Sky stared after her, then back at me, their mouths opening and closing like goldfish. I sighed, pulled a $10 note out of my pocket and squashed it into the almost full jar on top of the fridge. Swear jar. The girls nodded slowly, like twin perpetual motion toys. I found Stella lying on her bed, clutching Mumu and crying her eyes out. I sat on the bed and placed my hand on the small of her back. "I'm so sorry, baby," I said, my heart breaking. "I really am. I completely overreacted." "Dad said last night that we could make fudge," Stella cried into the pillow. "We were starting to clean up when you got home. You know I always clean up." "I know, honey." I was feeling worse by the second. "That was so embarrassing." Stella flipped over to reveal a face streaked with tears and her usually fair complexion dotted with red blotches. "Maybe you could tell Miyabi and Sky your mother is having a mental breakdown. It's not funny." "No, it's not," I said. "I'll apologise, I promise. What else can I do to make it up to you?" Stella wiped her face and stared at me solemnly. "I was actually going to ask you about something. Anything. If you could help out on the junior school concert with Oscar's mum." "Oh, anything else, please." "Well, it's a bit hard because you've never volunteered for any school stuff," Stella said, fixing me with a bleary-eyed stare. "And Mr. B said we should ask our parents to help." "But I work, Stell," I said. "Oscar's mum works from home, so she has more free time." "But your long service thingy is coming up." "Crap. And if you were helping out on the concert," Stella said, wiping her eyes with one of Mumu's hind legs, "you could show Miyabi and Sky that you aren't as mental as they think you are now." She had me there. "Let me think about it." Stella flopped back and stared up at the Hamilton poster on her wall. "Yeah, that means no." I looked at that crown of golden hair and my heart almost burst out of my chest. That crown that had grown out of a soft fontanelle that I'd loved to press my nose to and inhale my beautiful baby's scent. My Stella was so smart and forthright, but she was also fragile. There was a time last year when I was making her an after-school snack and she was telling me about a kid in her class whose parents were divorcing. Stella was very focused on which of the parents was the bad one and which was the good one, so I explained that it wasn't a case of good or bad, just that grown-ups sometimes stopped loving each other and weren't happy together anymore. She went quiet, and when I turned back from the fridge, she was staring straight at me. "You and Dad had better not ever get divorced." "Well, if he keeps leaving his filthy boots outside the back door for me to trip over." I was trying to be funny, but Stella wasn't having it. "It would break me," she said, without a hint of humour. "It would break me, Mum." She was so serious that I didn't make light of it, even though the thought of Greg and me separating was ludicrous to me back then. Back then. Now, it actually seemed like a distant possibility. "Okay, I'll help." She looked up, delighted. "Really? Oh, thanks, Mum." She frowned. "But you can't have a meltdown at school like just then." "Promise." We shook on it. Should I apologise to Miyabi and Sky for my mommy dearest moment? What? It was a long shot. Should I go say sorry? I think it's probably for the best, Mum. Done. I hugged her and mumbled into her sweaty, chocolate-smelling hair. Then I'll get us all fish and chips. And calamari rings? Yep. Stella didn't hold on to her anger like Zara did. The conflict would burn fiercely but briefly. That could well change as she got older, but for now, I was happy to achieve forgiveness through a few calamari rings and volunteer work at her school. The smell of our local fish and chippy was an emotional salve, giving me the chance to reflect on recent events with a relatively peaceful perspective. The guilt and shame I felt about Rick, deceiving Greg, losing it with Stella. All these things feeding the other and perpetuating a litany of less than ideal behaviour as a mother, partner and friend. Enough was enough. Once the kids were in bed, asleep in a greasy food coma, I'd give Greg the letter that I'd finally managed to finish and face whatever questions he wanted to throw at me. We'd talk it through until it was no longer a thing that could do our marriage the slightest bit of damage. I tried to imagine my husband's expression, but I had absolutely no idea how he'd react to my dirty secret. This was new territory for us. As low-key as Greg was, this situation didn't guarantee a low-key reaction, and my breath caught in my chest as I considered the terrible possibility of losing him. Greg had always been my great leveller, and could placate me with nothing more than an understanding smile and a hand on my waist. It was never patronising, pat-on-the-head type reassurance. Greg just understood me better than anyone ever had, and knew how to make me feel as if everything would be okay. The sex was still very good, and we'd proven to each other time and again that our sexual compatibility had never waned. But more than anything else, Greg understood that I was more fragile than the front I presented to the world. The strong, unflappable, no-nonsense woman that I'd expertly crafted myself into while living in London for 3 years. 2 days after doing a runner from the wedding, I walked out into the teeming Heathrow terminal and headed straight for the nearest payphone. I knew Dad and Auntie Carmen would be at the restaurant by then, so I left a message apologising again and telling them I'd safely arrived in London. Going to the other side of the world was a big deal for me. Aside from a holiday in Bali with the soccer gang when I was 19, I'd never ventured far from the western suburbs of Melbourne, and certainly never on my own. I'd purchased a Lonely Planet London book at Sydney Airport and mapped out a rough plan on the flight. I got the tube into the city, checked into a backpacker hostel in Covent Garden, met a 23-year-old singer/dancer/actor from Adelaide named Rita, and got a job working in an Aussie-themed pub called The Walkabout. So began an extremely highbrow chapter of my life that involved dyeing my hair blonde, spending most of my waking hours either working or drinking at The Walkabout with Rita and my new gang of Antipodean mates, and a brief foray into line dancing. None of my London mates knew anything about my life back home, and that suited me just fine. There were a few short-lived romances, followed by a drama-packed relationship with a cheeky blonde boy from Durham with green eyes, a deep husky laugh and a gorgeous accent. He took me to comedy clubs, called me a Bella, made me fall in love with him, and then cheated on me with anything that had legs and a vagina for the next 2 years. After Durham Boy broke my heart one too many times, I finally ended it. It took longer than it should have to ditch him, but the pain and suffering I experienced over that time felt karmic. I felt as though I deserved the betrayal and heartbreak after what I'd done to Rick. Alanis Morissette was my constant companion in the wake of Durham Boy. I'd walk around London, Alanis screeching through my headphones as I sob-sang the entirety of Jagged Little Pill. These days, I still went to Alanis for a dose of fortitude whenever I was feeling brittle. Up until Durham Boy, I'd only heard songs or seen movies about people's hearts breaking, unable to think about anyone or anything else. When it became my story, my very own rom-com gone wrong, I decided that I wouldn't risk myself like that again. Self-preservation would henceforth prevail. Greg recognised that in me from the get-go. I returned to Australia 3 years after my disappearing act, and 2 years later I met Greg. Aileen and I were out celebrating the end of exams in a city pub when a tall, scruffy-haired, stubbly bloke wearing a blue and white checked flannel shirt walked straight up to us and asked if I had a light. 3 drinks later, Greg admitted he didn't smoke. He just wasn't very original when it came to pick-up lines. I fell for the straight-talking, open-book, non-judgmental Greg Barrett straight off the bat. And it wasn't just his ruggedly handsome looks. It felt as if something chemical and entirely mutual was happening between me and another human being. When we kissed later that night, I was sure every light bulb in Melbourne must have surged with uncommon brightness. We were both so sure, so quickly, that we were it for each other, and talked about the feeling as though we'd discovered magic was real. "I'll tell you when I fall in love with you, Lizzie-Abella," he'd said after that first kiss, "which will be in about 2 minutes." Neither of us wanted to search any more. There was no need, because we'd found each other. Job done. Tick. When the subject of ex-boyfriends first came up early in our relationship, I went into detail about Durham Boy, but glossed over my teenage years and early 20s. The usual awkward pash and grope sessions at blue light discos, I'd said, avoiding eye contact. A couple of boyfriends after school, but nothing much. I couldn't tell him about Rick, because really, who could love a heartless bitch who'd left a man the night before their wedding? Jeff Buckley was the soundtrack of our relationship. Greg and I would make love to Everybody Here Wants You and Morning Theft, then sit in the lumpy double bed in his St Kilda share house, talking, smoking, me, not Greg, drinking red wine and eating chocolate ice cream until the sun came up. I'd walk around in a daze for the next week, as though coming down off a drug, until the following weekend when we'd do it all again. Greg would send me texts like, "My one and only Lizzie, you push my buttons in every possible way. I am yours always. I couldn't live without you, my love." It took me a long time to say "I love you" back to Greg. There was a lot of self-protection going on, but eventually he won me over. The fact that he never questioned, fought against, or resented my self-preservation in the early days, not even when I'd deliberately stepped back from our burgeoning love, only made me fall harder. By accepting my fortress walls, he'd managed to scale them. One night, about 6 months after we'd started going out, we were lying in Greg's bed listening to Mr. Brightside blasting through the wall he shared with his bonghead housemate Tim when I sat up and looked straight at him. "I can't remember ever being this happy," I said. "God, I love you." Greg stared at me for a moment. "That's the first time you've said it first," he said, his voice cracking. I still loved Greg as much now as I did then, even more if possible. But now, I was scared of all the unknowns that would be unleashed once I gave him the letter. I feared this great big thing that was hanging over our heads, ready to crash down and smash everything we had. I could hear Stella and her friends playing outside as I entered the house, the steaming hot fish and chips package in my arms. "Wash your hands, girls," I called out, heading towards the kitchen to grab the tomato sauce. I stopped when I saw Greg sitting at the kitchen bench, holding a piece of paper, an eerie expression on his face. I was too late. He looked at me and held it up. I saw the words at the top of the page. "Dear Greg, I have something I need to tell you, and I think it would be best if I did so in chronological order. That's how these things—" "So," Greg said, his eyes cloudy, "this is an interesting read." Invisible hands were pressing down on my chest. "I was going to give it to you tonight. Max was printing soccer images for his wall." Still that eerie expression. "He saw the Christmas presents document. Being 6 and all, he couldn't help himself, could he? When he saw my name, he thought he'd print it and give it to me." I was vaguely aware of the fish and chips burning my forearms. I was going to give it to you, but you didn't.
This ends CD 4. CD 5.
Megan. Megan was relieved to find Ellie sitting on her balcony flicking through A Woman's Day. She wasn't in any mood for the Cocoon Gang today. "What the hell happened to you?" Ellie shrieked. "You look like you've seen a ghost." Megan did look a fright. She'd caught sight of herself in the lift mirror on the way up and shocked herself. Her hair was lank and dry, her complexion pale, and yesterday's mascara was smudged under both eyes. "I didn't sleep well last night." Ellie jumped up and went to her. "Everything okay, hun?" Megan collapsed onto the yellow couch, exhausted. "I went to a funeral yesterday and it was a bit sad, that's all." "A funeral?" Ellie looked startled. "Whose?" "The school's lollipop man," Megan explained. "I was representing the school." "Henry Northcote?" Ellie asked. "You knew him?" "Well, I didn't, but quite a few here did," Ellie said, sitting back down and picking up the magazine again. "Apparently he was lovely." "Yeah," Megan said. "He was." "Sorry, did you say the school sent you as a representative?" "Yes. Why?" Megan said defensively. Ellie's eyebrows shot up as the corners of her mouth went down. "Just surprised, that's all." "Why?" Megan knew this wouldn't end well but didn't care. Ellie looked down, flicking through pages of long lens shots of celebrities with red arrows pointing out various areas of their bodies that were grossly lacking. "I've never heard you mention Henry," Ellie said, "and it's not like you're—" "Like I'm what?" Megan was baiting her mother now. "Well, you're not exactly the most community-minded individual, that's all," Ellie said, looking up. "You'd never had any interest in the school, let alone its lollipop man." Megan knew Ellie was right, but was incensed nonetheless. "For your information, I'm in charge of the junior school Christmas show this year." "You?" Ellie's hand froze mid-page turn. "Volunteering at the school." "That's right." Megan was now in full self-righteous flight. "They asked for volunteers and I stepped up." This wasn't true, of course, but Megan was suddenly enjoying her new selfless identity. She also didn't want to give her mother the satisfaction of being right. "Well, that's fantastic, love," Ellie said, looking genuinely impressed. "What play are you doing?" "No idea yet," Megan replied with total confidence. "Do they want a traditional kind of thing?" Ellie closed the magazine, excited by the topic. "You could do a Christmas carol. That's always an audience favourite." "What's that?" Ellie recoiled as if Megan had burped into her face. "A Christmas carol," she repeated, hoping her daughter hadn't heard her properly. "Scrooge." "The Bill Murray film?" Megan vaguely remembered seeing it as a kid. That wasn't very good, was it? "Are you fucking serious?" Ellie's face turned purple and her eyes bugged out of her head. "Bill Murray? Jesus wept." Ellie looked as if she were about to self-combust. "Charles Dickens's Scrooge," she yelled. "You do know who Charles Dickens is?" "Yes, I know who Charles Dickens is." Megan had definitely heard the name, but wouldn't be able to hum any of his stuff. "Oh, it's my own fault," Ellie said, shaking her head. "If I'd left you in school instead of dragging you off to stupid castings, you'd be more cultured." "Sorry for being such a dumbass," Megan sulked. "Oh, shut up." Ellie went to sit beside her. "You know I couldn't be prouder of you." Ellie kissed Megan's cheek. "You're extremely smart and successful. Not to mention a wonderful mother, and I love you to bits, you silly chook, she said. You can't help it if you're an uncultured swine when it comes to literature. Megan laughed. So, where do I find this Christmas Carol show? Would it be online? Oh, no. You're going old school research for this one, my love. Ellie opened her purse and handed Megan a card. The Applewood Library has a copy. There was a new email waiting for Megan when she checked her phone later that day. She frowned. Why was the new teacher, aka Lizzie's ex-shag, emailing her? Hey, Megan. Hope you don't mind me getting in touch. First off, great post. Really brave. Anyway, I spoke to Penny today and she said you'd be needing help from teachers to organise the junior school concert, so I'm putting my hand up. I've had loads of experience with drama, so let me know when we can get together for a brainstorm. I'll try to rally a few other teachers to get involved, and maybe you could get a few more parents on the team too. You're friends with Sam and Lizzie, yeah? How about roping them in too? You guys make a good team. Chat soon. Rick. Ha. Lizzie and Sam would be more likely to put their hand up to clean the school toilets. The Applewood Library's hardback copy of A Christmas Carol lay beside her laptop. Megan kept glancing at it as she replied to work emails and liked a few posts over the next hour. When the ancient Applewood librarian had slid the tattered book across the counter towards her, Megan instantly knew that the likelihood of getting Prep to Grade 4 kids excited about a story as old as Christmas itself was slim. As she waited for the chatty librarian to fire up her ancient PC, Megan had even considered legging it out of there and leaving the book on the counter, but she knew Ellie would find out and give her hell. After reading the description on the back of the book, Megan vaguely remembered the story of the old miser being visited by 3 ghosts, but didn't see how it could work as a school play. She'd have to modernise it somehow, or the kids would be falling asleep mid-sentence, not to mention the parents forced to watch it. Scrolling absent-mindedly through her Insta feed, Megan's mind replayed moments from Henry's funeral the day before. The old man beside Megan singing Jerusalem at the top of his voice as tears streamed down his face. Henry's 7 grandchildren reading a poem they'd written for their beloved Poppy. Margaret leaning over the coffin to kiss it gently. Henry's This Is Your Life video, where he walked into his local bowls club to cheers, claps and whistles for his surprise 70th birthday party. She glanced over at the book again. Now that she'd told Penny and her mum that she was going to do this, the least she could do was read the bloody thing. Besides, it was Bryce's weekend with Oscar, and she didn't exactly have anything else lined up this Saturday night. Megan closed the laptop, picked up the book, and headed over to the couch. She turned to the first page. Marley was dead, to begin with. There is no doubt whatever about that. The register of his burial was signed by the clergyman, the clerk, the undertaker, and the chief mourner. Scrooge signed it, and Scrooge's name was good upon change for anything he chose to put his hand to. Megan sighed. Fuck me, it's going to be a long night.
Sam. To Jack was here at hotmail.com. From Sam Hatfield Chef at bigpond.com. Subject: sick and tired. Hey mate, I just got back from walking the dog. Saw a bulldog that weighed more than me. I get nostalgic at the dog park. Bridge and I did a lot of courting at that park. Courtship. We'd smoke a joint and play with other people's dogs. Bridge was a canine magnet. Then we'd lie under a tree and talk about whatever. Why dogs are better than people, about music or art or her job. Free and easy talk. Pre-kids. Then post-miscarriages too. That park was where we'd go to cry. No talking, just tears. You've seen me here before. You've told me it isn't useful to think about how Bridge used to be, but I have to. I have to remind myself that this woman is still that woman. She's been through the ringer, Jack. The miscarriages, the fucking IVF, the all-consuming relationship anaesthetic that is IVF. Yes, it worked, and we have 2 beautiful kids, and it's a miracle. But that shitstorm of emotional and physical upheaval took Bridge away. I got kids. We got our kids. But I had to lose my wife. I wasn't going to tell you. Not until tonight, after pouring another pint of vodka on top of it. But straight after my introspective trip to the dog park, I decided to surprise Bridge at work with her favourite apricot Danish and a long black, and tell her to come and sit on the grass with her husband because he loves her and she deserves a goddamn Danish. So I did. And I felt like I did when my mum gave me $10 to go to the Fun Factory in 1989. I was floaty and grinning like an idiot. I apologised to her receptionist for not bringing a Danish for her as well, explained that she wasn't the mother of my kids, so she had a way to go before surprise pastries. She laughed and told me she'd call Bridge. She was still smiling as she spoke into the phone, eyes on me, sitting with my paper bag and coffee tray. Then the smile faded. She stood up and walked through one of the 2 glass doors that flanked the rear of her reception desk, so it was just me sitting there. Then the other door opened, and there was Bridge. She looked at me sympathetically, as if she was about to sit down, put a hand on my knee and say, "Sorry for your loss." But she didn't sit down. She stopped in front of me, her hands clasped in front of her. I held up the paper bag and said, "Snacks." Bridge smiled at me like I was a child. Then she said very quickly and evenly, "Sam, this last trip gave me lots of time to think, and I think you'd agree that it's not working anymore, so I've decided to leave." I can't explain exactly what happened next, or even how I'm feeling now so soon after. I remember standing and letting the coffees fall to the floor and not caring. I think I handed her the Danishes. I should have given them to the receptionist. S. X.
Lizzie. Aileen stared across the Laminex staff room table, her mouth open and her fair Irish complexion looking almost waxen under the harsh fluorescent lighting. I'd just finished relaying the Rick story to her, even though I'd had no intention of doing so when I started my shift 5 hours ago. I'd been writing out a care plan for a new admission when Aileen had marched into the midwife station and demanded to know why I'd been walking around with a face like a cat's arse. What? Tell me, right now, what's going on with you? She snatched the pen out of my hand and slammed it down on the desk. And don't give me this nothing, I'm just tired bullshit. So it was that over the next 5 hours, in between monitoring fetuses, administering internal examinations, and reassuring labouring women that they absolutely could keep pushing, I told Aileen the whole story. It was a relief. I could feel the invisible hands that had been pressing down on my chest for days easing their pressure as the story poured out of me. It was past midnight by the time we staggered into the staff room for a break at the tail end of a stupidly busy shift, and I brought Aileen up to speed on the last week. "You fucking dark horse," she said, finally finding her voice. "I had no idea my best friend was a Julia Roberts." "Huh?" "The Julia Roberts movie with Richard Gere," Aileen said. "Pretty Woman?" I asked. "Are you calling me a prostitute?" "No!" Aileen roared, laughing. "Runaway Bride. Different movie with Julia Roberts and Richard Gere. My point is, how could I not have known that my best friend left a man at the altar?" She didn't seem annoyed that I'd kept this from her, just stunned and amused. This was one of the many reasons I loved her. No judgment. Not proud of it either. "The night before the wedding," Aileen said, still trying to process it. "Fuck." "Shh." For the first time all night, the ward was silent. The last thing we needed was a new mum waking up and crying out for more tramadol. I wasn't usually a graveyard shift kind of girl, but I'd put my hand up for extra shifts this week. I just couldn't deal with the tension that seemed to seep out of the walls of our house every night once the kids were in bed. "And you and Greg haven't even talked about it yet?" Aileen asked. "Christ, Daniel would have gone spare. We would have been up all night thrashing it out." She grinned. "Italians, see? That lot get riled up over a soggy lasagna, let alone a wife's secret past. Didn't Greg have, a gazillion questions?" Well, my gut twisted as I replayed that night in my mind. The kids ran in screaming for fish and chips. Greg got the plates out and I made sure everyone had an even amount of potato cakes so we didn't get to talk. Yeah, but after that. "Stella's friends were over," I said. "I drove them home and when I got back, Greg had gone to bed. He left before I woke up the next morning." Okay, so that was a lie. I'd been wide awake when I felt Greg stir just before dawn the next morning. My husband was one of those people who didn't need an alarm clock. He'd been getting up at the same time for so many years that his body clock was Swiss. I'd been facing away from him, staring at the burnt orange spine of a chick-lit book on the bedside table when I felt Greg climb out of bed. It would have been so easy to turn and stop him with a soft, "Hey," or "Greg?" But I just lay there, paralysed with indecision and fear, listening to him opening cupboards and drawers in the semi-darkness as he put on his daily uniform of shorts, black t-shirt and steel-toed boots. When the bedroom door closed behind him, I exhaled loudly and realised I'd been holding my breath. "But what about since then?" Aileen said. "We were very polite to each other all weekend," I said, getting up to open the biscuit tin on the counter, which I fucking hate, but we were flat out driving the kids all over the place for sport. And did I mention the fact that I'm too gutless to bring it up? I offered Aileen a stale lamington. "You're not gutless," Aileen said, taking it. "You're a bit of a dolt, but you're not gutless." I sat back down and shook my head. "Ah, Lizzie," Aileen said, putting her hand over mine. "I've known you and Greg for years, You adore each other." This feels different. I tore my stale lamington in half, revealing the red line of "I can't believe it's not jam" inside. Bad different. We haven't been here before, and I know he's waiting for me to say something. So why don't you? I'm scared, and I don't know what to say. Hot tears pricked at the corners of my eyes. Apart from, "Hey, I'm really sorry for not telling you that I was engaged to another bloke once and left him at the altar." "Start with that," Aileen said. "It's better than saying nothing." "But what if one of us says something that changes things forever?" The tears were falling freely now. What if he says he can't trust me again? Or that he can't love me anymore? "Ah, you silly mare." Aileen pushed her chair back and came round to give me a hug. "That's never going to happen." But I could hear the uncertainty in her voice. Not even Aileen could guarantee that Greg's feelings towards me hadn't changed. "I've picked the play." Megan's excited voice jolted me out of the half-comatose state I'd drifted into moments after lowering my tired body onto the bench. It felt as if I was nursing the mother of all hangovers, even though I hadn't had a drop of alcohol the night before. My head ached and my eyes, stinging with fatigue, felt so heavy that it was taking every ounce of willpower to keep them open. I'd grabbed Greg's spare pair of crappy sunglasses out of the key basket to spare the world the sight of my bloodshot baggy eyes. If only I could hide the rest of me behind something equally as effective, like a body-sized pair of sunnies or some basic invisibility powers. I'd made even less effort with my drop-off attire than usual this Tuesday morning. A pair of grey tracksuit pants and an oversized black Bonds wind cheater that I'd picked out of a pile of dirty clothes on the bedroom floor. This glamorous look was topped off with my well-worn black Ugg boots. The only bright spark in this dark day was that Rick wouldn't be making an appearance. Zara had told me yesterday that her new favourite teacher was doing a PD course all week. He won't be back until next week. Zara was devastated. And the fill-in teacher is so boring compared to Mr. Cook. So, you like Mr. Cook? I'd asked, doing my best impression of a normal mum having a normal conversation with her daughter about her normal teacher. He's awesome, Zara said dreamily, and he's really good at soccer too. I prayed Zara hadn't waxed lyrical to Greg about her awesome teacher while I was at work. Might just send the poor man over the edge. This was what I'd been thinking about when Megan's excited voice shook me out of my reverie. Megan was looking as gorgeous as ever in skinny black jeans and an off-the-shoulder top. Her shiny beauty was a bit too much to bear this morning. She handed me one of the 3 coffees from the cardboard tray in her lap, and I cradled it to my chest like the magical nectar it was. What play! I inhaled the beautiful bitter smell and took a long sip. The school Christmas play! Even in my bleary-eyed state, I could see that Megan was peeking. The one you dobbed me into helping with, remember? I didn't know if it was lack of sleep or lack of brain cells, but something wasn't computing. The last I heard, Megan was furious about being roped into this school concert fiasco. But her bright, shiny eyes told a different story this morning. She seemed happy about it. Had I missed something? I thought you were getting out of that. Me too, Megan said, waving her hand airily. But then I thought, why not just do it, you know? Who are you? And what have you done with my friend Megan? Nice sunglasses, she said dryly. You doing some welding later, or? I delivered a one-finger salute as I took another sip of the sweet, sweet coffee. So you want to know what show I picked? This new incarnation of Megan Wiley was unnerving, to say the least. Sure. A Christmas Carol! Megan pulled a hardback book from her bag and held it out as though displaying a precious artefact. It's perfect, don't you think? I was up half the night reading it, and it's actually really good once you get past the ye olde language. The only time I'd ever seen Megan so passionate about something was when a chill Instagram post had cracked 20,000 likes. Scrooge? I took the dog-eared copy from her. The sticker on the front read, Property of Applewood Retirement Village Library. Did your mum give you this? I borrowed it from her library, yeah. Megan grabbed the book back. Makes sense, I guess, I said with a shrug. Scrooge hates Christmas. You hate Christmas. Are you comparing me to Scrooge? Red blotches appeared on Megan's cheeks. No. I was too tired to pander this morning. Relax. I'm just saying that's one thing you have in common. Megan's dad had left them the week before Christmas, so I could understand why she hated it. I'd probably boycott the entire season. Well, I don't love Christmas, Megan said defensively, but that's not why I chose it. Have you read it? Well, yeah, at school, I said. Isn't Dickens a bit ambitious for prep to grade 4 kids? Why don't you just buy a play online? That's what they did last year. No one expects it to be Hamilton, for God's sake. Ugh, those online plays are shit, Megan said, frowning. There's no meaning behind them. We're dedicating this play to Henry, and A Christmas Carol has a great message about community, which was Henry to a T. The kids will get a lot out of it. Since when had Megan given a crap about the kids? You'll help, won't you? Megan clutched my arm excitedly, as if asking me to help her shop for the perfect party outfit. With costumes and props and stuff? I was about to say there was more chance of me playing Stairway to Heaven on the recorder at the next school assembly when I remembered my promise to Stella. Sure, whatever. I pushed the sunglasses up to rub my twitching left eye. Megan gasped. Oh, Christ! You look like you could eat brains. Shut up, I scowled. I've had a few night shifts in a row. Doesn't Greg usually do drop-off after night shift? He did, but I was wide awake this morning and decided I may as well get up, despite not getting in until after 2 a.m. I'll take them, Greg had said, first thing. I froze, mid-leg swing over the side of the bed. That's okay. I'd used the same tone of voice on a stranger who'd offered to let me order ahead of him at the cafe the other morning. I'm awake, so you can go straight to work. I hated this polite bullshit between us, apologising as we squeezed past each other in our tiny kitchen and cross-referencing the kids' extracurricular calendar dates like office co-workers, instead of two people who'd seen each other on the toilet more times than we'd care to admit. The kids had noticed, of course. Why are you talking like that? Max asked, when I'd asked Greg if he could please pass me the sauce at dinner on Sunday night, and he'd passed it with a robotic, "Here you go." Like what? I could feel my cheeks heating up. Like weirdos, Max said, picking up a sausage with his fingers. You're talking to each other like weirdos. You are, Archie agreed. We are not, I said sharply. We're using our manners. Remember those, Max? Use your fork. Yeah, nah, that's a different kind of manners, Zara chimed in. This is like people from those body snatcher movies. Are you fighting? Said Stella, straight to the point as ever. No, we both said, too quickly. The kids stared, but before they could make any further awkward observations, I asked Stella about Lin-Manuel Miranda's latest gig. As she droned on about something to do with a Hamilton tour in Cambodia, I clocked Greg sighing the kind of sigh that would usually be reserved for the end of a particularly disappointing footy game. We'd never gone this long without addressing an issue, and the worst part was that the responsibility lay with me. Megan was staring at me now, waiting for my explanation. Yeah, he does, but hey, ladies! Dave stood in front of us in his crumpled purple shirt, dark blue jeans and ancient Converse. God bless you and your impeccable timing, Dave Podansky. Hey, Dave! I beamed at him. How's it going? He pulled a bunch of envelopes out of his crumpler bag. It is my greatest of pleasures to cordially invite you to a rather special event. He was speaking as if he knew we'd been discussing Dickens. He handed us each a black envelope, looking as excited as a kid giving out invitations to a birthday party hosted by the actual Iron Man. He bounced on his toes as we opened them and pulled out the invites, which were printed on what looked like cardboard from the future. 310 GSM metallic, Dave said, answering a question nobody asked. Wow, Megan and I intoned in sync. The invite read, You are invited to the official launch for the debut graphic novel from Dave Podansky. Codename, Code. Please join Dave and the team at Bar 404, Thursday, July 30th at 1900 hours for drinks, nibbles and identity theft. So you'll come, yeah? Megan and I glanced at each other. Dave, that's this Thursday, Megan said. Yeah. It's Tuesday, I said. A bit more notice would have been good. Yeah, I know, but the first run of invites just looked shit, he said, clearly traumatised at the memory, and it's a graphic novel, so it had to be right. I smiled apologetically. I'm sorry, but you got plans? Dave stared at us in despair and his shoulders slumped to the point of double dislocation. Well, no, I said, but I mean, that's the night after Wednesday, which is tomorrow, so it's just a bit... 3 coffees too much before 9 o'clock because I'm on my 4th and it feels right. Sam. Dave had saved me from Megan. Now Sam had saved me from Dave. Thank Christ. I think 3 is a good limit, up until midday at least. Megan looked as grateful as me for the diversion. Sam sat down, tapping his fists together as if he'd just discovered he had hooves. What are these? He grabbed Megan's invitation. Just a thing that's on, Dave said, and shrugged sadly, his tone well and truly in the doldrums. Oh, shit! Sam examined the invitation with the intensity of a young Indiana Jones. Your graphic novel? Dude, this is huge. Oh, I've got one for you too, Dave said, brightening slightly. This Thursday? Sam yelled loud enough for Megan to shush him. Yeah, Dave said. Short notice, so it's fine if... So what about notice? Sam threw his hands out and only narrowly avoided giving me a paper cut on my face. We're coming. Sam looked drunk. Seemed drunk. He was manic in a way I hadn't seen before, and it was a bit disconcerting. Great! Dave was thrilled. Isn't Friday your birthday? Megan asked Sam. Oh, yeah, Sam said, looking as if he'd genuinely forgotten. Even better. We can have a drink to celebrate my impending decrepitude. Awesome, said Dave, seemingly high off Sam's fumes. Here's your cordial invitation to the launch of Codename Code. He handed Sam a black envelope and Sam snatched it and held it aloft like a golden ticket. I'll be there, man. Can't wait. We're all going, yeah? Megan and I mumbled various non-committal noises, but Sam wasn't having a bar of it. Oh, whatever. He shooed his hands at us as if we were annoying flies. We're all going, and we're going to make some memories, and it's going to be the best night ever. Okay. Megan patted Sam gently on the thigh as if he were a religious nut who had accidentally wandered into the school and announced that Jesus was coming. Sam turned to me and did a double take. Jesus, Lizzie. Looks like you were pushed out of a vagina this morning. Megan. Bar 404 was cosy and warm after the crisp night air of Carlisle Street, and Megan's face and hands began to thaw within seconds of closing the heavy glass door behind her. She took off her scarf and scanned the room. The venue for Dave's Codename Code launch was a typically hip inner-city bar. Ratty antique sofas, walls of exposed brick, hardback books and black and white framed photographs lining the wall. Huge speakers on either side of the small makeshift stage in the corner were pumping out the kind of music you'd hear in a 70s sci-fi flick, and the scene before Megan was a kaleidoscope of beards, checked flannel shirts and vintage dresses. Wall-to-wall hipsters, geeks and artists of all descriptions. She screwed up her nose as the pungent scent of patchouli drifted into her nostrils, but couldn't help being impressed by the number of people who'd turned up for Dave's Geek Fest. Dave, the awkward, socially inept school dad, had drawn quite a crowd, and for the second time in a week, Megan was reminded of how few friends she had. She quickly spotted one of the few mates she did have sitting at the long, polished wooden bar. Sam wasn't looking his sharpest tonight. A 4-day growth, crumpled blue denim shirt, didn't he own an iron? And blue jeans that had some kind of food stain down the front. His tall, lanky frame was hunched over a bottle of Peroni, which he was staring at like a hypnotist. Megan wondered if he'd had a fight with that Ice Queen wife of his. He'll be right, she thought, watching him take a big swig of his beer. Lizzie and I'll make sure he has fun on his birthday eve. Weaving her way through the noisy crowd, Megan suddenly felt grateful to her bossy mother for forcing her to come. She, Sam and Lizzie rarely, if ever, socialised together outside of their morning schoolyard chats. Hanging with her drop-off mates after dark would be fun. Until half an hour ago, Megan had had no intention of venturing out on a cold Thursday night for Dave's event. Her evening had been well and truly mapped out. Once Oscar was asleep, she planned to read A Christmas Carol again and make notes on costumes, props and staging ideas. She'd actually been looking forward to it. Ever since Henry's funeral, the Lollipop Man had been popping up in Megan's dreams more frequently, and she was determined to do him justice with this concert. In fact, she'd been having lots of weird dreams since the funeral. Dreams she'd rather forget in the light of day. Last night, she dreamt that the ghost of Christmas future and Henry had taken her on a tour of Henry's graveyard, recommending good spots for Megan to be buried where she wouldn't be too lonely. Dave's launch had been the last thing on her mind, but then Ellie had popped over unannounced and spotted the invite on the fridge. "You going to this?" "Nah," Megan said, flicking on the kettle to make them a cup of tea. She'd only stuck the invite on the fridge to feel popular, since she couldn't remember the last time she'd received an invitation to anything. "Why not?" Ellie frowned. "I'll look after Oscar. Go have some fun. You're not dead yet." "I've got too much work to do." "Work can wait." Ellie took Megan firmly by the shoulders and steered her towards the bedroom. "Get changed. I will not be deprived of a night alone with my grandson." Megan had first texted Lizzie and Sam. There was no way she'd go unless one or both of them were going too. After receiving answers in the affirmative from both, Megan had thrown on her nobody jeans, brown-heeled boots and sparkly black peasant blouse before her mum literally pushed her out into the cold night air. "Hey," Megan said, squeezing in next to Sam at the bar. "Where's Dark Horse Dave?" "Huh?" Sam's eyes were slightly unfocused as he turned towards her. Megan wondered how long he'd been here. "Dave?" Megan repeated slowly. "The guy who invited us, and who apparently has more friends than Oprah?" "Yeah, popular prick," Sam agreed. "You want a drink?" Gin and tonic, thanks." Megan grabbed the only empty stool left at the bar. "I'll get the next round. Where's Lizzie?" Sam gestured towards the other side of the room where Megan saw Lizzie talking to Dave and a couple of other beardy people. She was looking gorgeous in black pants, a red silk shirt and ankle boots. It was rare to see Lizzie out of a hoodie and jeans, or pyjamas, basically anything you could throw in a quick wash cycle, so Megan was thrilled to see her friend dressed up. Lizzie caught her eye, waved, and said something to Dave, whose face lit up. He immediately excused himself from his bearded friends, and the two of them began battling their way across the room. Dave received high fives, fist bumps, or handshakes from everyone he passed, and Megan felt a surge of affection towards the man-child she'd only ever regarded with mild amusement. "You came!" Dave couldn't have been more excited if Megan had come dressed as Wonder Woman. "Wouldn't have missed it." Lizzie made a gagging motion over Dave's shoulder. "Oh, thanks so much," Dave gushed, nervously running his hands through his thin, spiky hair. "Can I get you a drink?" "On it," Sam said, handing Megan her G&T. "I'm so happy you're all here." Dave clinked his glass against each of their drinks in turn. Sam hit Dave's glass with his beer bottle a bit too hard. "Congrats, mate," Lizzie said. "Fantastic turnout." "I know, right?" Dave looked almost embarrassed. "It's a bit overwhelming." "Yeah, you deserve it," Sam said, "following your dream and making shit happen. Fucking awesome." Megan detected a bitter tone in Sam's voice and looked at Lizzie to see if she'd noticed it too, but her friend was busy taking a healthy swig of her Scotch and Dry. Christ, Lizzie and Sam were obviously up for a big one. "Thanks, mate," Dave said. Sam shrugged. "It's no Marvel universe, but I'm sure there's a couple of people out there who'll dig your style." Megan and Lizzie frowned at each other. Was Sam deliberately being an asshole? "Oh, yeah, I hope so," Dave said, with a half-hearted chuckle. And hey, happy birthday for tomorrow, the big 4-0. "Yep," Sam said, with all the enthusiasm of a ticket inspector. "Sure is." Dave raised his glass again. "To Sam." "To Sam," Megan and Lizzie chorused, and they all clinked glasses again before Sam chugged the rest of his nearly full beer. Whoa, easy, Tiger, Dave laughed. The night is young. I fucking hope so, Sam said, raising one hand to get the bartender's attention. I've only booked the babysitter till 11. Dave. A slim, dark woman in an emerald green shift dress beckoned to Dave. She was striking, with long, wavy black hair, smoky eyes and red lipstick. From the lotus pendant around her neck, Megan guessed she was Sri Lankan. Sorry, guys, Dave said, waving back. The missus wants to introduce me to some animation company peeps she invited. That's your wife? Megan stared in amazement. Animation peeps? Sam crowed. You're shitting me. Yeah, that's Kashini, Dave said, ignoring Sam's outburst. Back soon. He was instantly swallowed up by the small throng, leaving Megan, Lizzie and Sam staring after him open-mouthed. What the actual fuck? Lizzie said. Megan couldn't help but laugh. Dave's missus is a stunner. That'd be right, Sam muttered. He gets the career and the hot wife. Sam, Lizzie frowned. You okay, mate? Sweet as, mate, Sam slurred. Lizzie looked down at her empty glass and moved towards the bar to order another. Megan decided to hit them up before they both got too blotto. Get your phones out, she ordered. What for? Lizzie said, turning back. Date for your calendars. Lizzie pushed the blue scarf draped across her handbag aside and pulled out her phone. Sam was having trouble retrieving his from inside his jacket pocket, so Megan reached in and took it out for him. So what's this then? Lizzie asked, opening up her calendar. You having a launch too? What will the cool kids be wearing next season? Christmas play auditions, Megan said. Wednesday, 12th of August, in the hall at lunchtime. Why the fuck are you running auditions? Sam frowned. Isn't that, the drama teacher's job? Miss Mitchell's got some personal stuff going on, Megan explained, so Penny asked me to help. Hang on, Lizzie said, dropping the phone back into her bag. I said I'd help with props and crap like that. You didn't say anything about watching grade 3 and 4 kids mumble their way through Dickens. Dickens? Sam shouted. A few heads turned in their direction. Why the fuck would they be doing Dickens? Megan noticed that Sam swore a lot more when he was drunk. Because that's what I've chosen, she said, trying to keep her tone calm. A Christmas Carol. She pulled the Applewood copy out of her bag to show him. Sam threw his head back and roared. Fuck off! A few more heads turned. You brought it to the bar? Lizzie stared at Megan in disbelief. So? Megan suddenly wondered if that was a bit weird and shoved it back in her bag. Tiny Tim and shit, Sam scoffed. That's hilarious. Why is it hilarious? Any traces of calm in Megan's voice had vanished. I've run it by Penny and she thinks it's a great idea. It's a Christmas play, isn't it? From 500 years ago, Sam chortled. 200, actually. Megan had been doing her research on the life and work of Charles Dickens' website. It was written in 1843. Well, excuse me. Sam mock-bowed to Megan and almost toppled off the stool. Didn't know I was speaking with a Dickens aficionado. Shut up, Sam. Lizzie pulled her phone back out and entered the date in her calendar. I'll be there, Megs. Thanks, Megan said, glaring at Sam, and I'll talk to you about it when you're not being a drunk asshole. I'm not drunk, Sam said indignantly. An asshole? Yes. Drunk? No. I want one of those chairs from The Voice, Lizzie said, turning towards the bar. If a kid is really bad, I'll just... Lizzie trailed off and Megan turned to see what had caught Lizzie's eye. Rick Cook was standing in the doorway, unravelling a grey scarf from around his neck and looking very handsome in dark jeans and a blue check shirt. He caught Megan's eye and gave her a friendly wave. Your boyfriend's here, Sam teased in a sing-song voice. Lizzie turned. I swear to God, Sam, she hissed. If you say anything, I will knock you out. Jesus, calm down, Sam said, looking genuinely scared. Hey, Rick, Megan said as he walked up to join them. How's it going? Good, thanks, Megan, Rick said. Hey, guys. G'day, mate, Sam said, smiling too hard. Hi, Rick. Lizzie was flushed, and Megan wondered if she still had a crush on her old flame. The dude was super skinny, like Stephen Merchant skinny, but the messy hair and Buddy Holly glasses were sexy in a nerdy way. Must be unbelievably weird to have a guy you dated as a teenager show up as your kid's teacher. Didn't know you knew Dave, Sam said, still smiling like a maniac. I don't really, Rick said, but we got chatting at school the other morning and he told me about his book. I've always been interested in comics, so he invited me along. Megan clocked Lizzie frowning at this. Didn't bring your partners tonight? Rick asked. I was looking forward to meeting some more Bay Tree parents. I could try her on FaceTime, because that's always fun, Sam mumbled. I'm solo tonight and every night, Megan said, divorced. Greg's babysitting. I'm going to get another drink, Lizzie said. Anyone else want one? Before Sam could say beer, Lizzie disappeared into a group of people waiting at the other end of the bar. Think I'll get one too, Rick said. How about you guys? My birthday tomorrow, Sam muttered to no one in particular. Hey, happy birthday, mate, Rick said, clapping him on the shoulder. You'll definitely have another one then. Megan? I'm fine, thanks. As Rick headed down to the other end of the bar, Megan turned to Sam. You sure you're okay? Sam shrugged. 40 isn't old. It's easy for you to say, Sam slurred, waving his hand at her. You in your mid-30s. Henry didn't start painting or writing short stories until he was 55, Megan said, this random fact from the funeral popping into her head. Henry? The Lollipop Man. Megan couldn't believe Sam had forgotten already. They really were the shittiest community. The one who died? Oh, yeah, Sam said. Poor dude. Sam, what's... Hey, guys! Everyone jumped about 3 feet in the air as Dave's over-amplified voice boomed through the room. Megan turned to see a sheepish Dave on stage. Oh, sorry, folks, Dave said, tapping the microphone. Forgot I don't need to shout into one of these. Sam laughed way too loudly, and Megan prayed he wasn't going to be one of those obnoxious tools who shouted stupid shit out during speeches. She looked around for Lizzie. If anyone could keep Sam under control, it would be her. But she noticed that Lizzie was still down the other end of the bar, deep in conversation with Rick, probably reminiscing about their date to Basic Instinct or Pulp Fiction or whatever blockbuster was playing at the Sun Theatre in the mid-90s. There did seem to be a fair amount of hair flicking and giggling going on as a very animated Lizzie chatted with Rick. Megan frowned. What was she doing? Welcome to the launch of Codename Code, Dave announced. Means so much to have you all here for something that's, a pretty big deal for me, so I wanted to say a huge thank you to everyone, but to one person in particular. He pointed into the crowd, pride and love written all over his face. That woman there. His voice broke. My beautiful, amazing wife, Kesh, is the only reason I'm standing here. She's supported me and believed in me, and I couldn't have done any of this without her. I love you, babe. They blew kisses to each other as the crowd awed and oohed. Megan felt strangely sad as she watched this genuine display of love, and may even have gotten a bit emotional if an excited Sam hadn't chosen that moment to rush the stage and crash tackle Dave to the floor.
Sam. To Jack was here at hotmail.com from Sam Hatfield Chef at bigpond.com. Subject: stuff. Mate, I just made the biggest dick of measles even causing the marek with sassy Sasha at it. Home now spinning out and truing really hard to quit it, but I bumped into every wall and puss of furniture in the hose just getting my iPad form in the kitchens. Drinking alone is much better than public. Publiv's bad, and I'm already nit sure of what I dod. I would shouting and get kicked out and Lizzie and Meffin were there and just fucks. Birthday tomorrow, but don't even care. Shit, I need auto-correct. Need to chat son, please, I'm not okay. This ends CD 5. CD 6.
Lizzie. Davidoff fucking Cool Water. The musky tart scent had hit me square in the face the moment Rick arrived at the bar. It was like a sensory portal, sending me back into a quagmire of emotions, fears, and first love butterflies. Unwanted adolescent feelings flooded in as I breathed in that fucking aftershave. He'd been wearing Davidoff Cool Water the night we first kissed at the arcade, and I told him how much I loved the smell. It was his signature scent after that, and smelling it tonight brought back too many memories. For fuck's sake, I thought. Almost 30 years later and he's still wearing the same bloody aftershave. My natural response to Rick's appearance and scent was to get another drink, but I hadn't counted on him following me. Scotch and dry? He was behind me, pointing at my empty glass. Yep. Rick looked handsome tonight. Blue suited him, and there was a bit more colour in his cheeks than when I'd seen him at school. Good to see some things never change, he said, smiling. Let me get this one. Thanks. I'd never been one to argue with the offer of a free drink. He squeezed in beside me to order, and the bar was so crowded that his arm pressed up against mine as he leant over to get the bartender's attention. My heartbeat quickened. My mouth went dry, and then the shame set in. What was wrong with me? My ex-fiancé of 1,000,000 years ago scrubbed up well and made the vaguest of physical contact with me, and I turned into a blushing, babbling teenager? I pulled my arm away, pretending to check my phone, and wondered for the 10th time in the past 3 minutes why the hell I'd come tonight. I wasn't planning on it, but Greg must have seen the invite on the kitchen bench, and when Archie and I arrived home from after-school art class, he'd held it up without making eye contact. Something I was unfortunately used to by now. You going to that launch thing tonight? Probably not, I said. Archie, unpack your school bag, please. Greg put his head down to continue chopping capsicum for a stir-fry. You should go. Chop, chop, chop. No eye contact. Rage surged through me. The least he could do was fucking look at me when he was giving me the hint to leave him alone. Okay, maybe I will, I said, flinging my bag down onto the bench with more force than was necessary. Great, Greg mumbled. Yeah, great. It was the least polite we'd been to each other since Greg found the letter. The cracks were starting to appear and a full-blown implosion was imminent. When Greg handed me my drink, I immediately turned to head back over to Sam and Megan. Hey, do you remember when Vinny stole that bottle of scotch from the club? Oh my God, he was a wreck, I laughed. Every time a cop car drove past the park, he scurried up the tree faster than a monkey. We cracked up at the memory of poor Vinny clinging to the branches and glancing around furtively as the rest of us huddled in the playground fort, taking turns swigging out of the bottle and pissing ourselves at our paranoid friend. 2 hours later, I had downed maybe 5 more scotches, watched Sam make a total dick of himself, helped Megan get Sam into a taxi, and waved them both goodbye. Then I headed back into the bar and had 2 more scotches with Rick. And it was fun. I couldn't remember the last time I'd had fun like this. No kids, no placentas, no terrified mothers or fathers-to-be to placate, no tense conversations in the kitchen, just alcohol, reminiscing, and easy conversation. But as Rick and I laughed and drank, a nagging thought persisted. Apologise. Tell him you're sorry. Say sorry. Now is your chance. Do it. But I just couldn't. Besides, Rick was happily married with a family now, and we were having such a good time. So why dredge up past hurts and betrayals and ruin it? We were talking about the night Phil stole a stop sign and put it in Vinny's bed when the bartender called last drinks. I looked around and noticed that we were the last ones left. I remembered Megan and Sam leaving. Sam was so drunk. He was going to be mortified tomorrow. But I had no memory of Dave going, or anyone else for that matter. I looked back at Rick and realised I was having trouble focusing on his face. I'll drive you home, Rick said. I've only had a couple. Had he? Actually, yeah. When I thought about it, he'd been buying me scotches but had only been drinking water. He was very sober. It was annoying. "It's okay, I can do the Uber," I said, as the bartender wiped down the empty tables and started stacking chairs around us. "Oh, don't be silly," he said. "You only live around the corner." "Yeah, okay." I was too tired to argue. Also, the room was starting to spin and my tongue was stuck to the top of my mouth. Easier to just let him drive me home. Once we were in his car, which I think was red, or maybe it was purple, in an enclosed space with the heater turned up to high, my level of intoxication was undisputable and the pervading smell of Davidoff inescapable. Rick pulled up in front of my house and I stepped out of the car only to discover that the nature strip was moving. Or maybe that was me. Either way, it was very disconcerting and a bit funny. I started giggling as I stood beside the car. "I'll walk you up." "No." I must have used my scary mum voice because Rick immediately sat back. I felt bad for being grumpy with him, but there was no way Greg could see Rick. "I mean, no, thank you." I was trying to sound polite and sober, but think I sounded more like Dory doing her whale impersonation. "You sure?" I nodded so violently that I almost toppled over. "Absolutely." "Night-night." I faced the front gate, determined as a drunk can be, formulating a plan to reach the front door without making a sound. I would walk through the open gate, excellent that it was open, no squeaks to wake the husband, then up the path and onto those 2 wooden steps, avoiding the dodgy one that creaked, and get out my keys and open the door like with no sound at all, like none, 'cause I'd be like a ninja. A fucking ninja. Yes. "Go." I waved my hands and hissed at Rick, who was still sitting there watching me through his open window. He didn't seem happy about leaving me on the moving nature strip, but after another moment he waved and drove off. I put my fingers to my lips. Shh. I was reminding myself to be very quiet and not wake Greg. I turned towards my first obstacle, the gate, and saw something behind it that hadn't been there before. a blurry, Greg-shaped figure in his undies on the front porch. "Uh-oh," I said out loud. This struck me as hilarious, and I doubled over with laughter, grabbing onto the small tree on our nature strip for support. Unfortunately, it wasn't as supportive as I'd hoped. The thin branch bent towards the ground, and I went with it. "Oh, shit!" I shouted, before landing face down in the overgrown grass. "Classy." I squinted up at a grinning Greg. Sadistic bastard. "Needs to be mowed," I said, in as stern a wife voice as I could muster. "Least of your problems right now, buddy." He put his hands under my armpits and lifted me onto my feet in one swift movement. The nature strip, house, footpath, the whole street spun. Whoa! "Let's get you inside." And then I was moving, as if I was on one of those travelators at the airport, where the what's-it-called thing moves underneath you. I looked down to the ground and decided that Greg must be carrying me. "You called me buddy," I said as he lowered me onto the couch. "I heard you." "I'll get you some water," Greg said, walking into the kitchen. "You haven't called me buddy for such a long time." This struck me as so sad, and I dropped my head to my chest, which made the spinning room tip off its axis. "Here." Greg handed me water and I took a big gulp. My empty stomach rumbled and I felt the vomit dread. Fuck off. "Oh, that's nice." Not you. Vomit dread." "Oh, shit. I'll get a bucket." He started to get up, but I flung my arm out, grabbed the band of his boxer shorts and pulled him back down. "Ow!" "Sorry, listen." It was hugely important that I say this now. "I was going to tell you, about the wedding thing." "Lizzie, no, shut up." Not shut up, because that's rude, but listen. Now that I'd started, I had to finish, before the vomit came. "I was going to tell you, but I was so scared that you'd—" "I don't think now is the best time for this conversation," Greg said, smiling at me, which was so nice I can't even explain. "How did you get home, anyway?" "Rick drove me." The words fell out before I could stop them. Stupid mouth. Greg stopped smiling. Now he just looked so sad that I wanted to cry. "You've been with Rick?" he asked. "I thought you were at Dave's launch thing." "Exactly. Yes, he was there." "Shh." I didn't think I was shouting, but judging by Greg's expression and glance towards the kids' rooms, I must have been. "He was there," I whispered as my stomach rumbled again. "He said I was just around the corner, easy to drive me." Actually, I couldn't remember telling Rick my address. Did I tell him? I must have. "What's going on, Lizzie?" Greg was using the "I'm trying to stay calm, but my head is about to explode" voice I'd heard him use on Zara when she scratched his brand new ute with her bike when she was 9. "First, you don't tell me about your not insignificant history with this guy, and now you're getting drunk together at social events?" "Him not drunk, just me," I mumbled. "Didn't know he'd be there. Promise." Speaking was getting harder. "I mean, would you ever have told me what happened all those years ago if he hadn't shown up in your life again?" He sounded angry now. "How do I know you were even going to give me that letter? You sure didn't tell me you were going to be seeing him tonight. I mean, how do you think it looks from where I'm standing, Liz?" "You're sitting." "I find out this huge thing about your life," Greg said, his voice trembling now. Then you don't speak to me for over a week, and you did not speak to me. Shh. Oh, shit. I was shouting again. What's going on? The sound of Zara's voice made me jerk my head around so quickly that the room lurched sideways and my rumbling stomach contracted. The bucket, I croaked. Greg raced for the laundry. Are you drunk? I smiled at my beautiful frowning daughter in her Billie Eilish t-shirt and polka dot pyjama pants, her skinny arms crossed across her chest, and tried to shake my head, but nothing happened. I tried again, but my stupid drunk brain wouldn't let my head move. Maybe it knew that would be a bad idea. I had to sit still, very still, until Greg returned with the bucket. Oh my God, you are, Zara cried, looking both delighted and horrified. Sick, I managed to whisper. Where the fuck was the bucket? Yeah, sick from alcohol poisoning, she sneered. Greg ran in carrying the large plastic tub I washed the dog in. Jesus Christ, could the man not find a normal-sized bucket for his wife to spew into? Zara, he said firmly, go to bed. Your mother's not well. He handed me the tub with one hand and shooed Zara out with the other, who shot me one final sneer before leaving. I pulled the tub towards my face and inhaled a big old whiff of dog shampoo and wet Bailey. It was all over after that. The vomit dread became plain old vomit. Greg held my hair back as I leant forward, my stomach heaving over and over as I unleashed hell into that stinky tub. Excuse me, do you have Ditali pasta? The kid in the Coles apron looked at me as if I'd asked if he had nits. What? Ditali pasta? I repeated. I can't see it on the shelf. I said it as nicely as I could, but if this kid spoke to me in that "what the fuck do you want, old woman" tone again, he was going to know about it. I was not in the mood. Go on, kid. I fucking dare you. No, sorry, he said, looking around for someone to palm me off onto, but I'll go find someone. I felt slightly disappointed as he scurried off to find someone with a past knowledge that stretched beyond spaghetti. I'd mentally pumped myself up to give this Gen Z ning-nong of a shelf stacker a dressing down, when he almost definitely didn't deserve it. It wasn't his fault he was a Gen Z ning-nong. Nevertheless, I felt cheated out of a grumpy old woman rant at the useless youth, which seemed to be my permanent state these days. Less sleep due to night shifts, housework piling up, and a husband who couldn't look me in the eye was slowly but surely turning me into a banshee. That Greg hadn't already moved out after his plastered wife announced she'd been driven home by the man she'd kept secret for 15 years, not to mention the vomiting marathon, was hopefully a good sign. I'd spent all day Friday in bed, and Greg was very sweet when he got home that afternoon, bringing me coffee and ordering the saltiest fish and chips ever. Perfect hangover food. The six of us watched The Princess Bride again, and it had almost seemed like a normal Friday night. Although Zara had given me grief when she got home from school and found me watching Dr. Phil and nibbling saladas. How you feeling, Mum? She'd asked smugly. Still sick? If there's anything more revolting than a sanctimonious preteen, I'm yet to discover it. How kind of you to ask, I'd said, matching her tone. I'm feeling much better, thank you. Need anything? She was enjoying her role so much she could barely contain her delight. A wine, maybe? No thanks, sweetie. My tone shifted slightly, a warning that she was in the danger zone. I'm actually feeling quite irrational right now, to the point where I might cancel your sleepover with Maddie if you don't go and clean your room right now. She was gone from that lounge room quicker than you could say, "Don't fuck with me, kid." And the rest of the weekend had been the usual hectic palaver of netball, Zara, Archie and Stella, hip-hop, Stella, football, Max, and 2 birthday parties, Max and Zara. The only interactions Greg and I had were along the lines of, I'll pick up, insert kid's name, at insert time of day, and if you take, insert kid's name, I'll drop, insert kid's name, off to, insert activity. But at least we'd started interacting. Now that the seal had been broken, maybe we could keep talking about Rick when the time was right, and ideally when I was sober. By the time Sunday afternoon rolled around and I had 2 hours free before the last birthday party pickup, I decided to head across the bridge to have a cup of tea with Auntie Carmen. We had just sat down for our first sips when Dad ran in, shouting and waving his arms around because he'd run out of flour to make pasta for his Gargan Grieg special. Before he and Auntie Carmen could start arguing about who had or hadn't filled in the stock order form, I offered to head to Coles and buy pasta and flour. As I got back into the car, I'd spent so much time driving that weekend I must have single-handedly destroyed the ozone layer. I wondered if I should tell Auntie Carmen about Rick's reappearance in my life. I was more than a little apprehensive about the shame and pain it would dredge up, as the Abella family had come to an unspoken agreement years ago to never again speak of Lizzie's monumental wedding fuck-up. We were like a group of teenagers who'd accidentally committed murder and made a pact to deny it ever happened so we could all get on with our lives. I was 25 when I came back to Melbourne, and my homecoming had been as weird, disjointed and difficult as I'd expected it to be. I hadn't given anyone a heads up that I was returning and simply walked into Abella's one Wednesday and almost gave my poor father a heart attack. I'd been sending money home, paying back what I owed them for the wedding, but had only spoken to Dad every few months. This was mainly because I was in a toxic relationship with Durham Boy and was worried Dad would figure out that his daughter had turned into a broken fool and insist on coming over to rescue her. The second I saw Dad, I ran into his arms and we held each other for what felt like an eternity, tears streaming down our cheeks. Dad took turns berating me and telling me how much he loved me, and it was quite the dramatic scene. Christopher, however, barely spoke to me for the first 3 months. He was a week away from marrying Rosa when I arrived back, the reason for my surprise appearance, and made it clear I wasn't exactly a welcome guest. "The only reason you're invited is because Dad made me," he said over the phone. I understood. He was head over heels in love and about to get married, so he found the whole idea of running out on a wedding, not to mention your family and friends, completely despicable and pretty unforgivable. Joey, on the other hand, was single and working in the restaurant and had greeted me as if we'd seen each other every day for the past 3 years. Lucas was doing a marketing degree and working his way through a plethora of straight-haired, skinny blonde girls and had no interest in or understanding of commitment, so I was his hero. "You're a fucking rebel, dude," he announced when he found me sitting in the kitchen having a wine with Dad that night. Auntie Carmen took the longest to come around. I'd written her a long letter soon after arriving in London, trying to explain why I'd kept everything from her, but over the whole 3 years, she never once wrote back. On the rare occasions I rang home, she'd refused to speak to me, and although I understood her feelings of hurt, betrayal, and humiliation, it was still heartbreaking. I was more terrified about seeing her than anyone else when I got home, and expected that she'd have a hard time forgiving me. I was right. When Auntie Carmen walked into the restaurant that day and found my weeping father and me in each other's arms, she'd stared at me wordlessly, her complexion growing whiter by the second. Seeing her in the flesh was like a punch in the gut. I'd missed her so much. "Look, Carmen!" Dad had shouted through his tears. "Our Lizzie has come back!" I couldn't speak, silenced by fear and a skerrick of hope. Auntie Carmen walked over, pecked me on the cheek, and walked out again. She didn't speak to me for the next 2 months, until one night when the whole Abella clan went to our favourite Mexican restaurant for Joey's birthday dinner. Auntie Carmen and I both had a few too many happy hour margaritas, and once Dad went to bed later that night, we had it out. Shouting, weeping, raging, laughing, the full Maltese kitchen melodrama that lasted well into the wee hours of the morning. "You broke my heart," she screamed. "I'm sorry," I wept. "I'd never have let you marry Rick if you'd told me," she shouted, knocking a pepper grinder off the bench and onto the floor. "I would have called the wedding off weeks before." "I know, and I'm so sorry," I cried, trying to grab her rough, warm hands between mine, but failing miserably due to the amount of tequila in my system. "I should have told you." Sometime around dawn, we'd collapsed into her bed together, exhausted, drunk, and relieved. We never spoke of it again. We'd made our peace, and there was nothing left to say. One of Dad's more profound sayings was, "If you're always looking back at the things you've done, you'll miss what's coming towards you, and maybe walk into a pole." And so it was. No looking back for the Abella family. I'd tried to contact Rick when I got back too, to apologise in person, but his dad told me he'd moved interstate and slammed the door in my face. Fair enough. Who could blame the man? I was scum as far as he was concerned. Now, all these years later, here was Lizzie Barrett, a fine, upstanding citizen in the eyes of the world, married, kids, good job, and heading down to Williamstown Coles to buy pasta for Abella's Gargin Grieg special. A woman about my age helped me locate the elusive Datali pasta, and after buying the flour and some items for the Barrett household, I rushed out into the car park to get back to my panicked father. Dogs were barking in the park nearby, and I glanced over at the small playground that consisted of a yellow slide, a set of monkey bars, a small wooden fort, and 2 swings. It had been there for as long as I could remember, and I had a sudden flashback to a bunch of us sitting under the wooden fort, getting drunk on Lambrusca cask wine after a soccer presentation one night. That was the same night Melissa lost her virginity to Lockie under the huge gum tree at the far end of the park. The tree where 2 women were now chatting as their dogs ran circles around them. I looked away, reached into my bag for my keys, then frowned and turned back to look over at the 2 women again. There was something familiar about the way the one on the left flicked her hair over her shoulder, and her voice as she shouted at her dog to get away from the puddle. Was that Melissa Morton? The woman calling to the dog was my old best friend. The best friend who helped me shave my calves and toes when I was a hairy 10-year-old. The best friend who explained what "do you want a root" meant when 2 boys shouted it at us on our way home from school one day. The best friend who shaped my pubic hair into a love heart to surprise Rick after way too many West Coast coolers one night. The best friend who saved me from catastrophic levels of humiliation when I pulled a tampon out of my handbag instead of a cigarette in front of the entire boys' soccer team. The best friend who cried when I asked her to be my maid of honour. The best friend I hadn't seen in 20 years. She was a bit thicker around the middle, weren't we all, and her hair was shorter, but it was definitely her. My heart beat faster and my stomach twisted as I ducked behind a huge SUV that would have looked more at home in a presidential motorcade than a suburban car park. The last time I'd spoken to Melissa was the day I returned from the UK. After my family, she was the first person I tried to contact, but like Auntie Carmen, Melissa hadn't replied to a single letter I sent her from London. My old soccer gang had scattered to the winds and none of them wanted a bar of me, but that hadn't bothered me in the slightest. I'd changed a lot in 3 years and was ready to start a new chapter of my life. Melissa was the only one I cared about. Even before going to Rick's house, I rang her, desperate to reconnect and make amends. Hello? Melissa? Speaking. It's Lizzie. Silence. Can we please meet up? I really want to. Don't call me again. Ever. There was a sharp twang in my chest as I remembered how Melissa's voice had sounded like ice over the phone. I peeked out from behind the car and watched my old best friend put the leash on her dog, then walk out of the park and out of my sight.
Sam. To Jack was here at hotmail.com from Sam Hatfield Chef at bigpond.com. Subject: Happy birthday to me. Hey dickhead. Thanks for the personalised Michael Bolton e-card. Can't unsee that. Apologies for last Thursday night's gibberish. I've been drinking a lot, but that night I outdid myself. One of my drop-off mates, Nerdy Dave, is releasing this graphic novel and Thursday night was the launch. Megan and Lizzie were there too, and Dave was beyond rapt. There were a bunch of other people there who were important to Dave's career, but he looked really happy to see his friends. And I made a fuckwit of myself and probably ruined his night. I spent almost all of my birthday in bed, wondering if there was a way to measure the magnitude of a hangover, because I think I should be touching base with Guinness about that one, the records people, not the Irish food group. It could well have been the greatest hangover of all time. I felt fine when I woke up Friday morning, but I've been drinking long enough to know that I still had enough booze in my blood to keep me cruising until early afternoon. I felt like all of my internal organs had been swapped for rusty car parts, but I was okay. Luckily, Megan arrived at the door, wishing me a happy birthday and offering to drive the kids to school for me. I couldn't have been more grateful or ashamed. It was around 11 a.m. when I began to feel uneasy, unsteady, and sick. Strobe-like fragments of the night before started smacking me in the face. I grimaced and groaned for a good 2 hours as I contended with my hulking hangover and the puzzle piece memories that kept peppering my swampy brain. As best I can remember, Dave was giving a speech, something really nice about his super hot wife, and I made a horrible joke about him punching above his weight. Then I remember rushing that little stage and hugging Dave, taking the microphone and shouting at everyone to clap, because Dave's following his dreams and not everyone has the guts to do that and we should all be more like Dave. And then I'm pretty sure I made up a song called I Wanna Be Like Dave and sang it to him until I was escorted from the stage. At bedtime Friday night, the kids asked if Mum had gone away again without telling them, and when would she be back, and would she be able to read them bedtime stories when she's back. I said Mummy's really busy at the moment, but of course she'll read you bedtime stories soon. After everything she went through to have kids, it's like she resents their existence. Once the kids finally passed out, my birthday got even better, because Bridge rocked up unannounced, no Danish or coffee, FYI, to collect some stuff. She announced that we should talk separation logistics, like it was some tedious extension of our usual workday. She informed me that she has a bunch of travel over the next 3 months, and it'll be easier if she just stays OS in between conferences. In a nutshell, hi, nearly ex-husband, I'm going away for 3 months because I can, so you all good with the kids? Great, I'll send money, bye. Treated me like a servant. But that's the way it's been for yonks. It's only now that I don't hold the mantle of husband any more than I'm noticing it. I asked her what I should tell the kids. Her response? You know them better than me. There was no flicker of guilt or even jealousy that I know them better. Again, just facts. So now that's something else that's my responsibility, to frame my marriage breakdown in a way that's not completely crushing to my beautiful kids. I took a shot in the dark and asked, will I tell them about Mummy's new special friend? You must have thought it too, dickhead. All that travel, all those alpha fuckwits with their great hair and great clothes and great apps. They're Bridget's people, those fuckwits, and she's a hottie. She would have been sought after. She went all, "Don't be fucking ridiculous" on me, but I felt like shit and was giving zero fucks. I told her I'm not an idiot and to tell me his name. Whose name? Oh, for fuck's sake, Bridget. It's not like you're trying to salvage anything here. She looked at me with what I think may have been respect. Then, for the first time in years, she looked uncertain. This wasn't part of her exit strategy, but she could tell I wasn't fucking around. So, she took a deep breath, raised her chin, and looked me in the eye. Conrad. Fucking Conrad. She's been travelling with fucking Conrad for nearly 2 years. Premium airport lounges, sitting next to each other in business class, being driven from hotels to conferences and meetings and boardrooms and restaurants and bars and back. And then they'd fuck, safe in the knowledge that their lives are more than 10,000 kilometres away. I can easily imagine Conrad lying next to Bridge, all buff and sweaty and post-coital, pretending to listen to her complain about me. "How long?" I asked. "A year. More." Fucking Conrad. I stepped out of the way and she left. Happy birthday to me. I always knew we were a mess, but cheating never blipped on my radar. I thought I had a good radar. I can't believe you're the one I whinge to. You. The dude whose life got flipped like a pancake that landed on the floor. You know all this. I'm sorry, mate. I'm sorry that happened to you and that I was the one who told you that we could make it by morning and it was a really sweet gig and it could make a real difference. But now I feel like I'm the pancake tumbling in midair. So, I come to you. I always come to you though, don't I? For wisdom and patience and your fucking stupid sense of humour. Am I going to be okay? I really want to know this one, so try not to crack wise. Because I have no answer. Yes.
Megan. Quick, here he comes. Megan and Lizzie stood up on the bench and launched into off-key singing. Happy birthday to you, happy birthday to you, happy birthday dear Sam, happy birthday to you. Sam stopped dead in the middle of the schoolyard, mortified, which was exactly what Megan and Lizzie had been hoping for. Hip hip, Megan cried. Hooray, Lizzie shouted. All right, you've had your fun, Sam said, rushing over and glancing at the handful of parents and kids staring at them. Get down. Despite his surly tone, Megan could tell that Sam was chuffed. Happy birthday for Friday, mate, Lizzie said, hopping down to give him a hug. Sorry I only managed a birthday text and wasn't here to embarrass you on the actual day. I was sick. Sick? Ha! Megan scoffed. Shut up. Yeah, Sam the booze hound was a no-show on his birthday too, Megan said, handing Sam his coffee. Here's the present we were going to give you on Friday. Lizzie handed Sam the large, heavy, exquisitely wrapped gift she and Megan had bought at the homeware shop on Glen Huntly Road. Oh my God! Sam's arms physically drooped with the weight of it. What is this? A warhead? Open it, Megan cajoled. Sam began to carefully unstick and peel off the multiple layers of coloured paper, eventually revealing the chasseur stockpot in all its glory. Wow, he beamed. Guys, these things cost a bomb. More like a warhead. Sam looked as if he might cry. Oh, I've wanted one of these for ages, he said. Yeah, we know, Megan said. You've been banging on about it for months. Thank you so much. Sam hugged them both. This is the best present. Besides the deformed ceramic pencil holder from Lola and the picture Tyler drew me of Spider-Man pulling a web out of his nose. Lizzie nodded. Of course. Hey, listen, Sam said, looking flustered. I'm sorry again about my behaviour at Dave's thing. You're apologising to me, Lizzie said in disbelief. I'm the one who dumped you both to get plastered with my ex. Yeah, but you didn't ruin Dave's night and make a dick of yourself in front of the entire bar, did you? No, but I think my daughter and husband have lost all respect for me, Lizzie muttered. Are you going to tell us what's going on with you, Sam? Megan said gently. And don't give us some shit about being tired. You've been miserable for days. She'd been worried about Sam ever since depositing him in the taxi on Thursday night. He'd been babbling about hiring a private detective to find his balls and making no sense whatsoever, but she got the distinct impression it had something to do with Bridget. He clearly hadn't shaved in over a week and his clothes were crumpled and stunk. Yeah, you okay, mate? Lizzie asked. Yeah, look, it's just... Bridget left and... Again? Megan exclaimed. She only just got back. Jesus, no wonder you're shattered. You must be... No, she left. Sam looked at his friends, pained. She left me a week ago. Megan couldn't speak. It was awful. She leant over and gave him another, longer hug, and as his arms tightened around her, she felt furious with herself for not noticing her friend's sadness sooner. Oh, I'm so sorry, Lizzie said, joining the hug. She's fallen in love with a guy at work. Sam pulled away and picked up his coffee. She told me that extra bit of info while I was still dealing with my Hemingway-sized hangover on Friday. On your birthday? Lizzie cried, outraged. She told you that on your fucking birthday? What a heinous bitch, Megan thought. Jesus, he was better off without her. She's always had a good sense of occasion, Sam said, with a rueful grin. What about the kids? Megan asked. Are they okay? She wants me to tell them, Sam said. She's gone overseas for 3 months, so I'll have to find a way to deal with it. Megan had always known Bridget was an absent mum, but this was some next-level shit. She put her arm around him again. I'm trying really hard not to say what I want to say right now, she said, sounding calmer than she felt. Sam gave a short laugh. There's nothing you could think that I haven't already, he said. All I care about now is this not breaking my kids. Is there anything we can do? Lizzie asked. Nah, I'm good, thanks, Sam said, smiling. Shit, there's Dave. I've got to apologise for everything. Keep an eye on my fancy pot, okay? He got up and headed over to Dave, who was talking to a couple of mums on the other side of the playground. Fucking hell, Lizzie exclaimed when Sam was out of earshot. What a monster! Who does that? And to Sam, Megan said. How could anyone be cruel to Sam? It's like hurting a Care Bear. I can't even imagine the looks on my kids' faces if Greg told them we were separating, but Mummy couldn't be here to talk about it as a family because she'd fucked off overseas for 3 months, Lizzie said. Those poor kids. Megan noticed that Lizzie's usual fiery tone had a strangely introspective sting to it. Are you okay? Megan asked. You seem... I'm fine, Lizzie said. Just worried about Sam. We have to help him, Megan said, watching him approach Dave and hug him. These are the moments we have to put our own problems aside and help our fellow man. Did Ebenezer teach you that? Lizzie joked. Yes, actually, Megan said defensively. He says, mankind was my business. The common welfare was my business. Charity, mercy, forbearance, benevolence were all my business. He also says bar humbug, so, grain of salt. I'm serious, You know bits off by heart now? Lizzie laughed. Soon you'll be God blessing us, everyone. You can make fun, I don't care, Megan said. But I know what it means to be a good person now, and I'm going to help Sam through this, whether you want to help or not. Of course I'm going to help Sam, you fucking lunatic, Lizzie said. But I am seriously concerned about your obsession with that book. I'm not obsessed, Lizzie! Megan looked up to see Rick standing in front of them. Hey, Rick! Lizzie's voice sounded strained, as though she'd been karate chopped in the neck. Just wanted to return this, Rick said, handing Lizzie a scarf. You left it in my car the other night. Lizzie stiffened beside Megan as she took it. Oh, thanks. Megan frowned. What the hell was going on with these two? She glanced at her blushing friend and remembered that Lizzie had gone back to the bar when she and Sam left on Thursday night. But surely she hadn't... No, not Lizzie. She'd never do that to Greg. Would she? Not the Lizzie Megan knew. Thanks for driving me home too, Lizzie said, as if reading Megan's thoughts. I do remember that, despite the amount of scotch in my system. No problem, he said. You have fun, Megan? Not as much fun as this one and Sam, Megan said, still sensing that weird vibe between Lizzie and Rick. But it was a great night. Yeah, Rick said. Great night. Did Megan imagine it? Or had Rick given Lizzie a meaningful look as he said that? Anyway, got to get to class, he said, backing away. See you both later. Bye. The moment he was gone, Megan turned to Lizzie. Lizzie, shut up, she said firmly. I drank too much. He drove me home. End of story. I've got to go to work. She stood up and Megan felt bad. No space of regret can make amends for one life's opportunity misused, she said, trying to lighten the mood. Yeah, bah humbug, Mole, Lizzie said with a smile, then hurried from the schoolyard as if she were being chased by a rogue magpie. Megan turned to see Rick standing near the bike sheds, watching Lizzie a bit too intently. The smile faded from her face. In the week leading up to the auditions, Megan was revelling in her various good roles. Megan, the good community member, prepared for the play auditions, telling the grade 4s to prepare a short poem, no longer than 4 lines, or a few lines from their favourite movie. No one expected or wanted more than that from an 8-year-old. And really, all Megan needed to see was if they could read, string a sentence together, and speak above a whisper. Megan, the good daughter, took cupcakes to the Applewood residence and listened as 90-year-old Maggie complained about a recent outing to the city where the excursion leader Harriet had told them all to put their hands out the window before they left to see if they'd need a cardigan. Like we're a bunch of bloody drongos, she'd ranted to Megan before taking her teeth out to suck the pink icing off a tiny cake. Megan, the good mother, turned off her phone between 3:30 p.m. and 7:30 p.m. every night to build abstract Lego structures and play countless games of Uno with Oscar. Megan, the good friend, took Lola and Tyler home from school all week so Sam could stay at home doing housework or cooking or whatever he did. And Megan, the good ex-wife, had agreed to Bryce and Adam hosting Oscar's mini sleepover on the night of his birthday. Although, when Megan had asked how Bryce's mindfulness sessions were going, good ex-wife, and he'd shown her a photo of himself standing in front of 100 or so students, his hands clasped together, the tops of his fingers resting against his lips, Megan had laughed and said, "You look like a wanker." Bad ex-wife. But otherwise, Megan felt generally good about being good, even if she had dropped the ball a bit with work. She'd received a slightly passive-aggressive email from one of her customers who asked if you meant to send me the corduroy overalls instead of the 3 pairs of jeggings I ordered. She'll get over it, Megan thought. It wasn't as if leggings and overalls were life and death. Not like poor Bert, who had fallen down the front steps of Applewood over the weekend and was now in hospital with severe concussion. Megan had taken his wife Lucy a bunch of flowers and a box of her favourite dark chocolates. Henry would be proud. "You hit your head like silly old Bert?" Ellie asked when Megan walked into the apartment and found her mother bouncing on a fitball in front of the TV, doing her daily workout. "What?" "Lucy said you took flowers and chocolates round yesterday." So? Ellie paused the DVD, dabbed at a slight sheen of sweat on her chest, and turned to her daughter. "In all the time you've been visiting me here, you couldn't get me up to my room and away from the cocoon gang fast enough," she said. "Now you're bringing them cupcakes and staying for Sunday chats." "I brought you chocolate too," Megan snapped, "but you're not getting it now." "You know I love you." Ellie wrapped her brown, sweaty arms around Megan. "And I'll admit that sometimes I was worried you'd inherited your father's selfish streak, but I'm happy to be proven wrong." Megan felt as if she'd been slapped. "You thought I was like him?" The thought of sharing a single personality trait with that man was galling. Dean Wiley's own happiness was more important than the wife and children he left to fend for themselves. Megan remembered the look on Sam's face when he told them Bridget had left. She knew that look. She'd seen it on her mum's face and her own every time she looked in the mirror in the weeks, months and years after her dad did his disappearing act. And now Mum was saying she'd worried Megan was like him? "You think I could do what Dad did?" she croaked. "To Oscar?" "No!" Ellie was horrified. "Of course not. I only meant he had a tendency at times to... Oh, fucking hell, I'm sorry." She lifted Megan's chin to look her in the eye. "You are a wonderful, caring mother. You would never do that to Oscar, or me, or anyone you love." Megan assured Ellie that she believed her, but as they drank tea and ate chocolate, Ellie insisted she deserved a morning treat after her workout. She couldn't get her mother's words out of her mind. Inherited your father's selfish streak. She was still thinking about it as she pulled up outside the school an hour later for the auditions. "I'll just have to prove Mum wrong and give this school the best damn Christmas show they've ever seen," she thought determinedly. "Okay, quiet now, please. Hands on top. That means stop." The 30 or so kids scattered around the school hall stopped talking and put their hands on their heads. "That's better." Miss Mitchell looked as though she was on the verge of a nervous breakdown already. "If we are going to get through all of you before the end of lunch, you're going to have to listen, okay?" Most students nodded obediently, while the handful of preps and grade 1s who'd shown up, Oscar included, simply gave her their usual vacant stares. "Good. Now I want you to sit quietly while I chat with Oscar's mum." Oscar puffed out his chest and looked as if he might levitate with pride at the mention of his name. Megan grinned. That reaction alone made this all worth it. Miss Mitchell was a short older woman with wispy blonde grey hair and a permanently stressed expression on her face. She didn't dress like the drama teacher from Megan's school days, colourful skirts, tights and chunky jewellery. Lisa Mitchell wore sensible slacks, pearl-buttoned blouses and cardigans. Today Miss Mitchell's ensemble consisted of a soft blue cardigan, a grey-ribbed long-sleeved top and patterned silk pants, and she was looking more stressed than usual. This was understandable for a woman who spent her days wrangling feral kids and her nights tending to her sick elderly father. "Another teacher should be here to help out with behavioural management in a minute," Miss Mitchell said, leading Megan towards the stage. "The quicker we can get them to—" She frowned and pulled her buzzing phone out of her pocket. "Take it," Megan said, assuming it was a family-related call. "My friends will be here soon. They can help out." "Are you sure?" "Absolutely," Megan interrupted. "Take the call." Miss Mitchell answered it and headed for the door. "Dad, everything okay?" The noise level of impatient kids was rising, and Megan was about to give them the old hands on top when Rick Cook appeared. "Hey, Megan," he said. "Sorry I'm late. I'm on crowd control duty." "Oh, thanks. I was just—" "Okay, you lot." Rick jogged around to stand in front of the kids. "Who wants to hear me do a song?" Half shouted an emphatic no, while the other half cheered excitedly, then rolled around laughing as Rick launched into an extremely off-key rendition of Taylor Swift's Shake It Off. What the hell is he doing? Megan turned to find Sam and Lizzie behind her. "Stalling till you got here?" Megan said. "Where's Miss Mitchell?" Sam asked. Megan noticed Lizzie laughing at Rick as he flung his arms around and swung his hips. "Family crisis," she said. "So we're on our own. Well, us and Taylor Swift over there." She caught Rick's eye and gave him a thumbs up. He stopped singing, but not before shooting Lizzie a goofy grin, who shook her head and mouthed the word loser at him. What the hell was going on with these two? Megan thought. Was Lizzie flirting with this guy? But that was absurd. Lizzie wasn't a flirt. Megan made a mental note to pin Lizzie down after the auditions and talk to her. After all, wasn't it Megan's responsibility as a good friend to check in with Lizzie and make sure she wasn't on the verge of doing something she'd regret later? "Okay, kids," Rick said. "I'm going to leave you to your auditions with these awesome parent volunteers." He pointed to a black chair against the wall. "But I'll be sitting right there, watching." He swung 2 fingers from his eyes back to the kids. "So best behaviour, please." "Come on," Megan said, steeling herself. She led Sam and Lizzie around to stand in front of the kids as their respective children waved madly, as though they were pop stars walking the red carpet. "Hey, kids," Megan said, hoping they couldn't tell how nervous she was. "Miss Mitchell had to do some work, so the 3 of us are going to run the auditions. Who's excited about the Christmas play?" The younger kids cheered, while the older ones just shrugged or rolled their eyes. "Me too," Megan cried. "Lizzie and Sam are too, aren't you?" "Yes, Megan," they chorused like background wiggles. "Okay, let's get started." As expected, most of the kids were terrible, and Megan, Lizzie and Sam spent the next 50 minutes watching an endless procession of mumbling, stumbling, uncharismatic children strut their stuff on the hall stage. Megan included her own offspring in the shit category as soon as she saw Oscar and his best mate Toby perform a short scene from their favourite film, The Lego Movie. Megan's son mumbled his way through a scene comprised of only 4 lines of dialogue with all the stage presence of a broom. "Okay, who's next?" Sam looked as if he was enjoying himself way more than he should, considering the talent on show. "Well, that was Oscar-worthy," Lizzie muttered as Oscar and Toby high-fived each other, thrilled with their work. "Fuck off," Megan muttered back. "Wait till your kids are up." "It's just Stella," Lizzie said. "Max is here as Tyler's moral support." "You're in for a treat with Tyler's audition," Sam whispered as 2 giggling grade 4 girls stood up. Knock, knock joke. "Classic." Lizzie nodded her approval. "And Lola, well, you'll see." Tyler's knock-knock joke proved as lame as expected, something about an interrupting walrus, while Lola performed a short scene from Pride and Prejudice. Her Elizabeth Bennet rant to an invisible Mr. Darcy was enthusiastic and mercifully short. Sam looked fit to burst with pride, and even Megan had to admit that the girl could act and could be a perfect ghost of Christmas past or present. But apart from Lola, Megan was starting to lose hope of there being enough kids to fill out the main roles. One after another, they jumped up to showcase their limited skills as Megan, Lizzie and Sam scribbled comments like, "Not terrible," Megan, "Atrocious," Lizzie, "Dear God," Sam, and "Kill me now," Sam's directive to Lizzie after they sat through a 7-minute reenactment of Mufasa's death scene from The Lion King. The grade 4 girl played all the roles, including the stampeding wildebeest. Thankfully, the best saved themselves for last, and the final stream of grade 4 kids, Stella included, restored Megan's faith that the show could work. "That was fun," Sam said, passing his notes to Megan. "Should have gone to my pap smear appointment instead," Lizzie said, slapping her notes down in front of Megan. "Would have been more entertaining." Megan frowned as she read one of Lizzie's notes. "A table has more personality." "Bit harsh." "Nope," Lizzie said. "True." Sam grabbed his crumpler and stood up. "I've got to go make a creme brulee for my mum's birthday dinner tonight." "Show off," Lizzie said, rolling her eyes. "Want to get a coffee?" Megan asked Lizzie before she could do another runner. "Oh, can't, sorry," Lizzie said, her eyes darting over to Rick, who was escorting kids out of the hall. "I'm working tonight, so got to get dinner sorted." "Okay, no worries. See ya." Megan watched Lizzie walk out into the schoolyard and noticed Rick hang back to talk to her. Lizzie shook her head and laughed at something he said before the two of them stopped in the middle of the yard, talking and laughing. Megan frowned, the pit of worry in her stomach growing deeper by the second.
I broke up with Natalie tonight. She's great, but doesn't compare. None of them have, or will. I've known that from the start. Claudette was exciting and different and French. She was the best distraction so far. But that's a dreadful way to think about a woman you're seeing. Reaffirms for me that I should just focus on uni and make sure I set myself up for a solid teaching job as soon as I'm done. Such grand plans. Jesus. I roll my eyes at my own aspirations these days. Everything I do is undercut by feeling sad about Lizzie. Or angry at Lizzie. Or still fucking longing for Lizzie. I swear I don't even know if she's a real person anymore, or just this mythical creature I concocted to torture myself. I polished off a bottle of red last night and spent too much time searching for her online. Nothing. No social media, no LinkedIn, nothing. All I found was stuff about a Bella's restaurant, and one archived photo from the local rag where I could just make her out, surrounded by her family, pixelated to the point of anonymity.
Sam. To Jack was here at hotmail.com from Sam Hatfield Chef at bigpond.com. Subject: CCB. You know what makes me angry, dickhead? Light cream. Cream without the point. It wouldn't do for Mum. You know Mum. She'd take a mouthful and look down at her favourite recipe of mine, a basic coffee creme brulee, and furrow her brow slightly as her chewing slowed. She'd ask if I used full cream, and I'd want to flip her dinner table. But it's her birthday, so she deserves for her dinner table not to be flipped. Her birthday dinner is tonight, and, as always, she will cook 5 kinds of meat to the point of extinction and serve a range of vegetables that look like they've been the subject of cruel experiments. These delicacies will be served with a loaf of buttered white bread on the side and plenty of tomato sauce on the table to unify the flavours. And I'll take my coffee creme brulee, because I always do. Bridge used to thank her lucky stars for my creme brulee, because it meant she could avoid eating too much of the main meal, saving myself for Sam's famous CCB, as it's become known. Bridge knew Mum would never argue with that. She'd just nod and say something like, "If I had a figure like yours, dear, I'd make sure to watch it too." But I couldn't make my CCB without full cream. So I did something I'm not proud of. I left the kids alone at home and went to the shops. Holster that righteous indignation, dickhead. They're big enough kids and this was an emergency. Lola knows my phone number off by heart and I made her say it to me before I left. I'm a good parent. The alternative was flipping a dinner table. There's a heightened sense of urgency when your kids are home alone. Every hindrance seems like it was sent just for you. By the time I got to the shops, Lola had already called once, which made my heart fall out of my ass, but she just wanted to know the Netflix passcode. I told her without thinking. She could have been watching Deliverance, but she was alive. By the time I wrapped my fist around a container of full cream, I felt a bit like Odysseus, although my quest had only lasted 11 minutes by that point. I marched to the checkout, where there was one couple in front of me. A couple who'd witnessed the invention of the wheel. Dickhead, they were so old, the woman was trying to pay with a goat. Not true, but a vivid image. She was counting out coins that she was extracting so slowly from a purse probably made of mammoth hide. She examined each coin as if it were a lost artefact. Her beloved husband would then confirm which denomination she was holding. I wasn't coping. I was jiggling around like a small child busting for a wee, willing these fossils to obey nature's law and dissolve into dust. Then I heard a hello and felt a tap on my shoulder. I almost dropped my precious full cream as I turned on my tap-tapper like a viper. Sasha recoiled and laughed. I was not prepared for this. Dickhead, I fear I behaved badly. Sasha asked if I was okay, and I spewed out something about creme brulees and Mum's birthday dinner and old people and light fucking cream. She looked at me with sympathetic bemusement and assured me it would be fine. I informed her that there was a lot more on my plate than a simple dessert and that this had thrown me. She asked what specifically had thrown me. I took umbrage and said, "Just everything and everyone." She nodded and said, "Okay." We stood in silence. She took a half step backwards, creating a safer distance. I turned away, blinking hard. Why did I offload on this woman? Finally, I stepped up to hand over my cream, brandishing my credit card. The checkout chick scanned the cream and asked if I needed a bag. I said I was sure I'd be able to handle the cream sans bag, and it came out narky. She asked if tap payment was all right. I said, "When is tap not all right?" She looked at me with such potent disdain that I felt myself blushing, knowing I was being a total twat and that Sasha was right there. I tapped my card, picked up my cream, and looked back at Sasha to apologise. But her eyes were on the floor. She was stoic. I left with the cream, but no dignity. I got home to find the kids safe and well. Tyler was playing Minecraft and Lola was watching Tea with the Dames. I asked why an 8-year-old girl wanted to watch 4 octogenarians talking about their eyesight going, but she ignored me. I started cooking, angry cooking, crashing and banging around the kitchen like a cranky chef. The CCBs turned out well. I split one between me and the kids as a peace offering, and they made all the right noises. I gave them a kiss and told them theirs were the only opinions I cared about. We have to head off in a minute. The kids have made her homemade cards that they worked really hard on. I'm hoping that'll take the heat off me. I hope. Me again. Flash forward. Mum's wasn't too bad. I'm too tired to break it down for you. Mum made all the right noises when she tasted the CCB, which gave me more relief and pleasure than it should. But there it is. Mothers. Be good to see you soon, dickhead. Let's make it happen. Love you, mate. S. X. This ends CD6.